It is 6:07 in the region. People are texting me going, why are you late? Well, because Lynette and I have to come in here and plug in a bunch of stuff and rebuild computers. We're like our own little geek squad at 6 a.m. here in the region because, you know, that's how it is at WJOB. You have to figure out where does this wire go, plug this in, replace this monitor before you can go on the air. But, hey, I don't know, whatever. It wouldn't be WJOB if it wasn't that way. Good morning, Chuck Pullen, sitting in for Jim here on a Monday, although this has kind of become my regular gig, I think, until he wants to come back in on Mondays. But who would? Who doesn't want to sleep in on a Monday? Bob Starkey out on assignment to, I think he's in Las Vegas. We'll hear all about that next week. That's just us today. So much news, breaking news in Israel, news all over the region. So much to talk about, but let's get to the important stuff first. That's traffic and weather. Taking a look at traffic here in Northwest Indiana, things looking good. 8094, 65, Toll Road, everything's looking good here in the region. Currently, your trip, if you're heading downtown, looks pretty smooth. Things are looking good on the Dan Ryan Bishop Ford, 294 looking good. The only thing I see going on right now is there was an earlier accident eastbound 8094 at Torrance. Has the right lane closed. So that should not be affecting things, but obviously if you see anything, you know the number, 219-845-1100. But as of now, things are moving smoothly, and that can change in a moment. So let's take a look at weather with Lynette. Let's see if your mic works. No, it doesn't. Why would it? Just shout really loud. Everybody will hear you. Just start pushing buttons. Maybe eventually it'll work. Maybe they unplugged you.
No, I forget they fixed the mute button.
Oh, they fixed the mute button.
Yes.
That's good.
All right, good morning, everyone. Today we're at 49 degrees with highs of 73 and lows of 59. We'll be having plenty of sun and should be mostly cloudy later tonight. Tomorrow and Tuesday we'll be having highs of 68 and lows of 56. Should be mostly cloudy. And then Wednesday we'll be having highs of 65 and lows of 50. Should be cloudy in the morning and then times of clouds and sun in the afternoon.
Fantastic. Thank you. Let's get right into it. If you can put in, I don't know if they're still showing that video. I can't see anything because, of course, nothing around here works. But if you want to show that live video I put up earlier, huge news coming out of Israel. President Trump is speaking in Israel. You don't have to play the audio. Just play some video for those. I mean, if he's talking, that's great. If you see him talking, just put it up and we'll listen to him. Is he speaking now? I can't see. So.
Thanks to
there he is.
Almighty God of
Let's play a little bit of this.
Isaac and Jacob.
Turn up a little bit. If you can. This is happening live in Knesset, Israel.
After 2 harrowing years in darkness and captivity, 20 courageous hostages are returning to the glorious embrace of their families, and it is glorious. 28 more precious loved ones are coming home at last to rest in this sacred soil for all of time. And after so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity.
Okay, that's a good place. Go ahead, just kill the audio. You can leave the video going for a little bit if he's speaking. But so, breaking news this morning, President Trump in Israel speaking about the last of the 20 living hostages being released in Gaza. Israel will begin releasing 2,000 Palestinian prisoners as part of the ceasefire deal. So this is one of those things, if you, I'd love to say this is huge news. I'd love to say this is, we're waking up this morning to a huge shift in how things work in Israel and with Palestine and Hamas. If you've been around a while, you say, this is great. How long will it last? How long before the ceasefire is broken? But again, it's always a good thing to see that this issue has been temporarily put to bed. So, I'll be honest, I am not I focus a lot on the region. I focus a lot on the United States. So this isn't exactly my wheelhouse, but obviously it's something that we've always talked about. It's something that has always been sort of an issue, is this, conflict in Palestine. And so to see this is obviously a huge success to see that at least for now we have the ceasefire. More than 67,000 people have been killed in Israel's offensive on Gaza. This all goes back to, this has been going on for 2 years now, going back to when 1,200 people were killed and 250 people were taken hostage, October 7th, a little over 2 years ago. It's always an interesting thing. I don't really get into the Middle Eastern politics. I don't get into the Israel thing. As a libertarian, I know that we pay for a lot of that. So that's always, we are probably Israel's greatest ally. We spend a lot of money with them. And so, we've sort of been their big brother when it comes to these things. But obviously, huge news out of Israel, huge day. They're saying that President Trump is has done more for the Israeli people than any other president. Obviously, this coming on the heels of President Trump not winning the Nobel Peace Prize, which apparently he's a little salty about, because it's sort of like, well, what do I need to do to win this? They're saying he was snubbed, but it was interesting because the winner was Maria Corina Machado, who dedicated the award to Trump after he missed out on it. So she won it and dedicated. She was a Venezuelan opposition leader, and she dedicated her win to Donald Trump. So it's decisive support for his decisive support in her country's fight for democracy. So what are your thoughts? 219-845-1100. Obviously, people that pay closer attention to this or have been living through this longer than I have. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Is this a lasting peace? Is this a historic day, or is this just a pause in decades of fighting? It remains to be seen. Why don't we take some calls? Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Well, it's a good first start.
Absolutely.
It's shameful that the Norwegians didn't see fit to give Trump the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, he's more than earned it. I mean,
it's interesting though. Think about this. So it's interesting that President Obama, regardless of your opinion of the man, won the Nobel Prize basically before he did anything, right? It was
right
in 2009. He just became president, and he wins the Nobel Peace Prize. And it's kind of like, okay, what did he do? And it's not to say he didn't earn it or anything like that, but what did he do to earn it? And I often talk about, obviously, he continued the drone strikes of President Bush, and so sort of, as libertarians, we always joke. I wonder if he won that, if he was wearing the Nobel Prize as he was calling in, drone strikes on that wedding and things like that. So it's interesting just to see the bias even in that committee,
yes.
that President Obama would win one before doing anything, and then President Trump wouldn't win one while brokering these historic peace deals. So, obviously, Israel has been in conflict basically since its creation. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, is this something, do we think that this is going to be a lasting peace? Do we think having President Trump's thumb on, I kind of wonder if this is sort of like the Afghanistan situation, where having President Trump's thumb on the scale is good for now, but he's not going to be around forever.
Well, let me just say that you left out one thing in terms of Obama.
Sure.
In that he bombed the bejeebers out of Libya,
right,
and turned it into a
did we lose Walt? Is he still there?
I guess he
dropped out. Walt, hey, Walt, call back. I obviously wanted to hear his opinion on things. Yeah, that's another thing we need to fix someday. Well, I would say at least the phones are working. But hey, Walt, please call back if you're listening. I will. We'll get you right back on if you call back. So, he was. Go ahead. Put it back up. Morning caller.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Well,
sorry, Walt. Go ahead.
Let me just say this about the Middle East. We're not talking about decades of conflict. We're talking about centuries of conflict.
Well, I'm saying since the creation of Israel. But I'm saying yes, centuries of conflict, a never-ending conflict in that region. Agreed. But I'm just saying.
Let me talk about let me talk about some of the players. For one thing, it's a predominantly a Muslim area, but then you have the Shiite Muslims, mainly in Iran, and then the Sunni Muslim, which is the dominant sect. You have Arabs and you have Persians. In Israel alone, I mean, you have conflicts between the secularist Jews, which are the dominant group in Israel, but then in conflict with the religious types, and particularly the Orthodox. Big controversy in Israel is that the Israeli government decided they after exempting Orthodox Jews from the military draft, they decided to start drafting, and of course there's a lot of conflict. So there's so many there's so much reason for people to be in conflict with each other, and they have plenty of history to look at and say, you did this, and then no, you did that. I mean, and it just it'll be a miracle if we can get beyond this first phase. It's the next phase is the disarming of Hamas, and I think another thing that may very well be front and center for the Israeli, and that is Netanyahu. He's a very shady character. He's basically a crook.
Even Trump called him in a speech. He said he's not the easiest guy to deal with, but that's what makes him great. I mean, obviously, again, there are people that are looking at him for war crimes and things like that. So yeah, he's somebody that, again, he rules with an iron fist. But I guess that's always the question: is when you're in that situation, is that how you rule? I don't know.
Well, there's another question in terms of his behavior, and that is his cozy relationship with Hamas before. And the argument has been made by his critics saying, look, you got in bed with Hamas to undermine the Palestinian Authority on the West Bank, and you went to sleep. You made the horrible assumption that because you were in bed with them that they would not attack Israel. Well, the Hamas obviously played Netanyahu, and so he may eventually, I suspect, this whole issue of his relationship to Hamas before October 7th may be brought up, and he may be asked very tough questions about your failures amongst the Israeli. That's a big question. How did this happen in the first place? So,
well, I also want to get into sort of the our relationship with Israel. Obviously, we give them
$5 billion a year.
$5 billion a year, weapons, money, things like that. So, that always becomes the question. Going back to this idea of sort of the American thumb on things, it seems to me when I look back at all of the things that we've gotten mixed up in as a country, it almost seems like in more cases than not, we're doing more harm than good. We're prolonging wars. We are basically, there's a question about the American military-industrial complex and should we be providing arms to these different places. But, even in the case of Israel and Hamas, there's a meme on the internet, Walt, where basically it shows the two fighting, and it says my tax dollars on one side and also my tax dollars on the other side. So sort of this idea that the United States just always seems to be funding both sides of conflicts. I mean, is this something that we need to start reining in at some point? We're $37 trillion in debt. Our government's been shut down for nearly 2 weeks because we can't pass a budget. At some point, I think we need to re-examine our foreign aid and our foreign interests. I mean, I don't know.
Well, it always pays to put a firm, tight hand on the government spending of money, and it's out of control.
Right.
And it's laughable to see the Democrats saying, "Oh, this has nothing to do with giving medical care to illegals." Well, the truth of the medical. Let's go back to the last primary the Democrats had. What were there 10 people lined up? They were asked.
They were all asked, "Would you support this?" And each one of them raised their hands.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so yeah, no, and I've seen that clip, and I don't disagree. So, but again, it's always that bigger issue of one of the problems you have in government is everybody has sort of their pet projects or their pet ideas, and so is the funding for illegal immigrants, is that a make or break? Of course not, but it's death by 1,000 cuts. And this is the problem: is we spend so much time focusing on this one little issue, whether it's you're talking about healthcare, you're talking about funding for illegals, you're talking about whatever. We have 1,000 things to get through to cut $2 trillion out of our deficit, and yet we're gonna spend weeks and months focusing on one thing. And that's the problem, is that we get so focused, the media gets us all worked up over this one thing that we never get to that meat. And I think that's a lot of what Elon Musk was working on, is he was going through things line by line. And of course he got to Social Security and they attacked him. He never got to the big issue, which of course was military spending. But this is the thing, Walt. I mean, as I look at this, and you've seen this your entire life, is we can't even agree on one thing. And there's thousands of things that they need to agree on to start pushing this budget in the right direction. How do we ever get there?
Well, let's talk about the international sphere.
Yeah.
The United States government, depending on administration, sends money overseas to advance Western values in third world countries. And this conversation I had about 10 years ago at a restaurant at a hotel on north side of Chicago, the northwest suburbs of Chicago, and the guy was dressed up. Him and the woman dressed up in very severe dark clothing. They were obviously religious types, and we started talking to them. I started talking to them, and as it turns out, the guy, these people were involved with going overseas and promoting medicine and education, promoting basic education and so forth. And this guy admitted to me, he said, at one time I was a big liberal, and I believed in the idea of spreading American Western style values to third world countries. And what I just came to realize was it was causing conflict in those parts of the world.
Right.
So now I'm absolutely opposed to any effort to spread Western values in the third world countries. Limit our activities to basic things like healthcare and basic education and so forth. But how do you stop the people who push that stuff? How do you stop the Democrats from pushing things like, in this country, insisting on allowing men to be in women's bathrooms and girls' the dressing rooms in schools and so forth? These, with all their talk, they have not given up on that issue. They mean it, and there's no end to it. They just will not stop.
Well, and this was interesting. While I was listening to somebody over the weekend, he was sort of he was an aid worker, and I think he worked in places like Africa, and he was talking about what he saw as far as how our aid made it to the ground. And so he talked about, for instance, he went to a village, it was dirty, people were starving, things like that. And they started talking about the aid they received. And the guy pointed to like 5 USAID dumpsters. And he said, well, what have they done? What have the Americans done? Or what have these aid workers done? They said, well, they dropped off these dumpsters. So, okay, and then what? That's it. They just dropped off the dumpsters. They never came back to collect the garbage. They never brought us food. They never did anything for us. They just dropped off some dumpsters, and that was it. And so that's sort of the thing, is that we can talk about this all day long, but we're, this idea that billions of dollars are leaving the United States, and then by the time that money filters down and hits the ground and hits the people that we're supposed to be helping, we're not doing anything. We're basically dropping off dumpsters or spoiled food or something like that. And so that becomes the idea. It's like, it'd be great if you could show us that you were actually helping people with this money. But at the end of the day, the incompetence of government, the corruption of government shows us that it never filters down to the people it's meant to help. And so until we rein that in, we need to reevaluate all of that spending, whether you're talking about USAID, whether you're talking about military-industrial complex, whatever spending you're talking about, the bottom line is it never reaches the people it's meant to because our government is just so inept and corrupt. And that's the thing that, Walt, as you always say, like sort of the lefties, that's what they don't understand is we spend trillions of dollars to help people and we're not helping those people. But what is their solution? Spend trillion more dollars,
yes.
Right?
We have the Democrat answer to, well, this, let's go back to the Great Society programs in the mid-'60s. It was supposed to eliminate poverty. It was supposed to eliminate crime. It was supposed to bring paradise in America.
Yeah.
It was supposed to save our cities and so forth. And what's the answer of the Democrats when you point out to them the failings of all these programs? What's their answer?
Spend more money.
Spend enough.
No, we didn't spend enough. Yeah, it wasn't real. We got to try harder, right? I mean, that's the problem. Is that the solution to more government isn't more government, and until the point that people on both sides start to realize that, we're never going to solve this problem. We're just going to add to the debt. So,
we're going to have continue that $37 trillion is going to skitter out of control, and it's going to be $50 trillion. And beyond.
Right. And
that's where we're headed.
Right. And so we're already at $1 trillion in always appreciate the call. I appreciate your wisdom this morning because there's it's a big topic. I'm glad you called in. We do need to take our first break of the morning. So let's go ahead. Let's take a break and we'll be back with more Summer of Chuck in the Fall here on WJOB. 6:33 in the region. Chuck Pullen here on a Monday morning. No Bob. He is on assignment, although we will have a spare Bob calling in at 7:30 to talk about a cool event happening this weekend. But let's take a look at traffic and weather. As far as traffic goes, things are still looking smooth here in the region this morning. 80, 94, 65, everything moving along well. You've got your normal sort of building traffic on the Dan Ryan. Bishop Ford still looking clear going into the Dan Ryan. Nothing really on 294, so really nothing on the board other than just sort of the usual Monday morning building traffic if you're heading downtown. But if you see something, you know the number, 219-845-1100. How is the weather looking?
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 54 degrees with highs of 73 and lows of 59. We'll be having periods of sun and should be mostly cloudy later tonight. Tomorrow on Tuesday, we'll be having highs of 68 and lows of 56. It should be mostly cloudy. And then Wednesday, we'll be having highs of 65 and lows of 50. Should be cloudy in the morning and then times of clouds and sun in the afternoon.
Thank you so much. If you are just waking up, we have huge news coming out of Israel this morning. President Trump just spoke a little bit ago. All of the living hostages have been freed from captivity in Gaza, about 20 altogether. The hostage for prisoner exchange between Israel and Hamas began around 8 a.m. Monday as Red Cross convoys made their way through Gaza to bring Israeli hostages home. Israel is releasing around 2,000 Palestinians, including 250 terrorists, so that's good. President Trump arrived in Israel Monday morning, where he's making a historic address to Israel's parliament, the Knesset. Israel's President Benjamin Netanyahu also addressed the Knesset and remarked that Trump is the greatest friend the state of Israel has ever had in the White House. And Trump will later visit Israel to participate in the Middle East peace ceremony. So obviously this has been going on for a little over 2 years, going back to the October 7th massacre. And so this is great news for them. It's sort of interesting is that, things are chaotic here in the United States, but hey, at least we brokered peace somewhere else. But, again, it's a good thing whenever you can bring an end to a conflict. 219-845-1100 if you want to chime in on that. We obviously have a lot of local news that I'll get through at some point, but we also want to take your calls about that because, again, big news this morning out of Israel. So that's a great thing to see. But go ahead. Let's take some calls. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Chuck.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Good to hear a libertarian and or conservative viewpoint on the radio station this morning. I'll say it, and I say it again. Station needs a Republican, conservative viewpoint.
I try. Bob's on vacation, but he'll be back next week.
100%.
But again, but so here's the thing, though. I mean, I definitely appreciate that, but also this is what I always say about what is really neat about this radio station and what happens here in the mornings is that there are people that will tune in on a Monday to agree with me. There are people that will tune in on a Monday and hear my voice and tune me out. There are people that will do the same thing on Tuesday and perhaps on Wednesday and perhaps on Friday. One of the biggest problems that we have is that if you tune in on a Monday and don't like my conservative libertarian viewpoint, you tune me out and go listen to smooth jazz, right? I mean, that's the problem is we're no longer having these conversations. It was interesting. I made sort of a new friend a couple weeks ago from Illinois. And he finally, I guess he sent me a friend request, and I always try to caveat that, like, okay, just be warned, there's a little chaos on my Facebook. And he immediately messaged me. He's like, I'm a hardcore Democrat. That's not going to be a problem, is it? I go, no, I don't think it will be because I want to hear your opinion, and I hope you will consider hearing my opinion. And that's how it used to be. Even when we had last week, I had Levita Sparks-Wade, Democrat. We don't agree on a lot of stuff, and I talked to her about these things. I said, we don't agree on a lot, but I love hearing your viewpoint because you look different than me. You had a different, you've got a different background. You've had a different life experience than I have. It's boring to talk to people that look like you, right?
Yeah. Yep. And my point for making that comment is because exactly what you just stated, because I listened to the interview with Levita Sparks-Wade. And it's interesting. She made excellent points. It used to be, okay, you may live in another city from me. You may have 100% diametrically opposed political viewpoint of what I believe, but there were certain points that we could at least discuss. I may agree with you on point A, you may agree with me on point B. Today, I can't agree with her on anything because the people that despise her, and like she alluded to, then they'll assume that I'm quote-unquote in her camp.
Right.
I cannot call this station and say I agree with a mayor in Crown Point that happens to be a Democrat. That must mean I'm a toady. It must be I am a member of the McMafia team. I can't agree with a congressman who happens to be a Democrat on point A, but I disagree on 10 other points. All the critics here is you're a toady for that person. So my criticism is not just of people with diehard points of view. My point is when people don't listen, and I hear it many times on this station, people talk a lot, but people don't comprehend. They do not comprehend. I put Levita Sparks Wade, since you pointed out, isn't it interesting? The lady went from elected official in the city of Gary, leaves the city, goes to another city, gets out of their hair, but since she supported a candidate within the city 10 years ago, she comes back. You think you're on the team. Now, let's face it, the team Melton, that's my guy. Guess what? There's still people, even though you won, there's still people within that team that's going to destroy you. And see, that's the part that so many people on this station fail to realize.
And here's the thing. So, I mean, in her case, I've known her a long time. If you were to tell me, pick somebody to run like a parks program or to be around children, to care about children, to care about the community, she is somebody I'd say I would pick her. But far too often what you find, and I find this in, I find that there are people that, for instance, somebody's cousin gets put in charge of the
Yes.
IT department.
Yes.
And then I hear from my friend who says, man, they brought me in because this guy made a mess of the IT department and they got hacked and their systems are out of date. And now we're going to spend millions of dollars to fix because they brought in the wrong guy.
Right.
So it's one thing, it's one thing to bring somebody in to be whatever, your spokesperson. You can't really screw that up. It's another thing to bring in somebody's cousin who can't even, send an email to run the IT department, right? I mean, or even to be your CFO or anything like that. It's like, look, at a certain point, you need to put those friendships aside and find the most qualified person. And you're right, more often than not, what we find is there are people that are grossly unqualified, but because they put in the work, they get the job, right?
But Chuck, it's so sad because even if you and I agree, we support candidate X. Okay, we're not talking about the past. We're talking about going forward. There's still people that are surrounding that person that still have it out for you for 10 years ago.
Right.
Even though you admit today you both support the same person. And it's so, and then I got to be lectured to by those people that are a part of that process. You're going to lecture to me when I know what you're all about within that realm. And she hit the nail right on the head. And it's not about agreeing with her. I'm a spokesman. But did you understood her underlying point of view? There were still people out to get her. Wasn't that the main issue of her comment?
Right. And so that was the question is why would you, but again, this was the whole point when, I talked to her quite a bit offline and I, as soon as I saw her name in the paper, I said, Levita, I've been through this. A lot of people have been through this. I said, I know it's tough. I want you to know I'm here for you. And when you're ready, and I always told her, I said, when you're ready to tell your story, you know where to find me. And one of the things that really meant a lot to me is a couple weeks ago, she reached out to me and said, I prayed about it. And I realized that you would give me a fair shake and a fair and unbiased and a fair interview. And that's why I'm choosing to tell my story with you first. And that meant a lot to me. And I think that's something that I always strive for, is this idea that it doesn't matter whether I agree with you or not.
100%.
But you can come on these airwaves and you're going to get a fair shake and get a fair chance to tell your story. And so that way everybody gets to hear both sides, because far too often what we find in the morning paper is one side of the story depending on allegiances and alliances, right? And so it's sort of a funny thing to find out that one of the newspapers, I had a running joke, and I'll tell it here. It's kind of funny how one of the newspapers decided not even to bother printing a newspaper on Monday anymore.
Right.
I guess they decided that they can't compete with Summer of Chuck.
Right.
So good for them. But again, it's sort of that thing where we know by default when your name shows up on the front page of the paper, it's not the full story. And that's from the beginning of me on WJOB. Every single person I've talked to whose name has been on the front page of the paper, the story isn't accurate. The story isn't even half the truth. And so that's why every time one of these people ends up in the paper, I say, when you're ready, come find me, because I know there's more to the story.
Well, all you got to do is ask Kuziak. They lied on Kuziak years ago.
Yeah.
They lied on. They beat the snot out of Tom Philpott, Dr. Tom. He asked for a county vehicle one time. They beat the snot out of that guy on that paper. So the average Joe Blow schmuck is thinking, well, this greedy politician, look, what's he trying to get? Look what they did to him.
No,
they destroyed the man.
To your point, he is somebody I would love to talk to hear his side of the story. I would love to have him on someday. If anybody knows him, tell him I'd love to have him on a Monday, because I want to hear his story, because I don't know it, right? And that's the problem. Not many of us know that story. Not many of us know the name. We don't know the story. We know what the paper wrote, and that's it.
But it's all about Tom, Chuck. Just think about it. A generation is 20 years, basically.
Yep.
You could. I've literally seen people, the generations of people, basically being lied to on this station by media outlets, by narratives, by repeating the same lie over and over and over. So now the lie becomes the truth, because in your mind, all you know is what you know. All you know is what you've heard.
Well, okay, so think about this, though. So I think about, and Lynette, I want you to chime in on this at some point as well, is think about, like, if you're a young person, like Lynette, or, or DJ Matt, or, any of the young producers that are on the airwaves, they're coming into it already being a generation being deceived. How does a young person ever get back to the truth? Because you're always being told, your parents have been told lies, you've been told, again, so you sort of pick that camp based on what people before you have been told. And you pick any story. You can pick
anything.
Even immigration. We act like immigration just started 10 minutes. This has been going on for 50 years. We've been having
100%.
issues with immigration and the border. I mean, again, this has been going on for generations.
Right.
And you are just now, you're a young person just now being exposed to the news. Like, you got to go back 50 years to see where this started, right? But how many people are going to know to do that? There's so many things in the media. There's so many things in our American history that, you kind of just think of it as it started when you started paying attention. No, it's been going on for decades. It's been going on for generations.
Exactly, 100% correct, Chuck. That's 100%. The history starts today.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So if I lie to you constantly from day going forward, you're going to believe me, especially if you trust me. You trust your teacher.
But even going back to your point earlier, it's like here in Lake County politics, there are rivalries that go back several generations.
Decades.
I don't like you because my dad told me something about you when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like my family, like Hatfields and McCoys, like that.
Right.
We're into 2 and 3 generations now of animosity against each other for something that nobody remembers what happened. We don't remember why we hate each other anymore.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. The thing is, I used to talk to a guy from the city, used to be on the radio in Gary. I said, it's like your great-great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather didn't like each other, so now I hate you. And if you think that doesn't go on, I'm trying to tell you it does. And when you bring it up, so many people miss the point. They'll think, well, you're criticizing community X, or you must be a Republican, or you must be a Democrat, or you must be this, or you must be that. The military-industrial complex, I've been talking about it all along. I'm the true liberal. I've been talking about the military-industrial complex, as was Walt on these airways. Walt, Mr. Conservative, he'll tell you he was against the Iraq war from day one.
Right.
We were on the opposite side. You know why? Because I was lied to. I was lied to by the Bushes and the Cheneys and the so-called quote unquote limousine liberal Republicans. I was lied to. We were on the opposite side on this station, man. We were lied to.
Well,
the politicians lied to us.
Can I ask you about, you bring that up. Do you follow Bill Maher at all?
Yeah.
Have you been? So, I mean, it's interesting to see you. It sounds like you have a similar trajectory as him. Is sort of he was a classical liberal. He was a classical liberal against these things, and now he's starting to realize that his party has moved so far left. He's kind of stuck in the middle, going, I don't even know who I am. He doesn't like Trump, but he doesn't like what his party's doing, and so I think you're seeing a lot of that. You're seeing a lot of people that are sort of left of center, right of center, going, look, my party's left me. I don't like anything I'm hearing anymore. And we're the ones that are sitting here going, we're the ones at the end of the day that are going to work, keeping this country running, paying our taxes, keeping our community safe and clean. And we're the ones that are, and I feel like nobody is being represented anymore by either party, right?
What do we do?
Right.
And the thing is, and what's really annoying though is when you point these things out. Because like I said, I remember people on this station talking about the military. It's convenient if you're on the opposite side, and it's
well,
easy
when you don't, it's easy to talk about it when you're not the one in power.
Same
and that's always the interesting thing is people always talk about the debt when they don't have when they're not in charge. Everybody talks about. I always say, why don't you fix it when you have the power to fix it? Right now, the Republicans have the power to fix so many things, but instead they're blaming the Democrats, right? And then again, what's going to happen? In a couple of years, it's going to flip. So same thing. Democrats never talk about the debt unless there's a Republican in the White House.
Right.
And that's the inherent issue. Is nobody wants to talk about it when they have the power to fix it.
Isn't it funny? You don't hear too many on the other side talking about the military-industrial complex now.
Well, why don't you go? All you need to do is, if you've never been there, go to Open Secrets, the website, and you can go line by line and see what congressman is getting how many.
We know locally from the
locally.
Past.
I mean, right? We
from the past. We know.
Again, our Democratic congressman bankrolled by the military-industrial complex. The majority, the leader of the House subcommittee on defense spending, the man who literally controlled the purse strings, bankrolled by the military-industrial complex, and who talked about it? Nobody but the people on these airwaves.
And the thing is, Chuck, and I'll get off after this. Everybody brings up Eisenhower. They'll bring up the quote, but I go back all the time, look it up. There's a retired. I think he was a general or whatever. He won the Congressional Medal of Honor during World War I. Retired from the Marine Corps. Smedley Butler.
Yep.
He wrote a book after World War I talking about the war as a racket. So
but remind people, because I love doing this. Remember what Eisenhower said on his way out of the White House.
Beware of the military-industrial complex.
And then Kennedy came in, and what did he say? He talked about the shadow government. He talked about the exact same thing in that same speech about going to the moon. He talked about the shadow government, the military-industrial complex. So we've is nothing new. We've been talking about it for decades, but nobody wants to do anything about it.
But the thing is, though, when you bring it up, then we go fast forward. Again, I'll get off after this. The deep state. It's all connected. Then when you bring up the deep state, well, you Chuck, I heard it on your station. You got tinfoil around your head.
Yep, we're tinfoil hat.
It's all tied together.
Right.
Good day, Chuck.
Hey, thank you so much for the call. Always appreciate it. We got time. Let's take one more call before we take our break. So go ahead. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Well, good morning, Chuck.
How are you, MX?
Well, let's talk about something really good.
Okay, we got good news. Go ahead. What do we got?
I think a libertarian could even say this is a good thing. Gas prices are dropping in Wisconsin down to $2.60.
Yep, and we're at about what, $2.80, $2.90 here in the region. Again, great thing. And so, if this state had managed our gas tax piggy bank better, our gas prices would be even lower. And again, every time I talk to a lot of people, MX, and you know what I always talk to them about? I said, I always mention those times 10 years ago you came on the air with me and we talked about wheel taxes and gas taxes and food and beverage taxes. And we tried to warn the people about all this nickel and diming that was going to be happening. Right. And we were laughed at. We said, this is what's coming. This is all these new taxes. And they didn't hide it. It was right there. And if you felt like reading a 1,000-page document, it was right there. So here's all the taxes we're going to need to pay for all these ideas. Right?
Okay.
Here we are. Go ahead.
All right, we're at 277, Wisconsin at 260. But the big, what would you call it, hit us all in the chest? There's a few things that worry me. You can't call law enforcement clowns. Now, as we know, and I'm not going to hold it against Jason Gore, but you need to bring Jason Gore in and ask him a real question, because people are asking me this. A lot of people, because I only wanted 200 people in MX cartoons. We're up to 512 now, and I want you to do this, and I want you to weasel out of this. I want you to ask Jason Gore what he thinks about McDermott calling law enforcement clowns. So you write that down on your little tablet, and then I know you got some hair on your back. You know what I'm saying? I want you to bring Jason Gore in, because this is a big election between Jason Gore and Flores and Cherkovich and Crane. I want to know if he thinks that's wrong, that McDermott is calling law enforcement clowns.
So remind people what happened. So he was calling the ICE agents in Chicago clowns?
He was calling ICE agents, and what's the other one? He was calling them clowns. Now, there was one woman who said she don't care about all that crazy stuff. Gas prices are going down. They were $5.50 when Biden was in there. And I like to see the Tuesday morning show talk, it's the Three Marshes show, The View. That is actually The View. Now, if that was me and somebody else, they would tell us to stop that. The station owner, when we started getting down on people for cost overruns. If there's one thing I ask you, and I let you use the site, we're friends and all that. Bring Jason Gore in and ask him that. Now, you got that written down on that pad?
I've got it right here.
Now, here's the second thing. And, we're friends now, me and McDermott. I don't make no cartoons, but maybe. So, when he called Holcomb a felon, oh, yeah, that's great, everybody cheering. But it cost us the Hold Harmless Act, which, for the people who are listening, if one casino makes more than another, they got to split the pot. Nobody makes $38 million, like, let's say, Hard Rock, and Hammond make 20. Now, because of, and we cheered it, Holcomb's a felon, that cost us the Hold Harmless Act, in my opinion. And now we got a wheel tax, we got a food tax, and our water bill went up 400%. Now, yeah, we're going to call these ICE agents clowns, and this is a clown. And Terry said it right. They're going to put some teeth in this now. Chuck, I can't take another tax. Now we got a 1.2% coming. If you listen to Tom Schmidt from Cherville, he says, we'll work around it. We're not going to have it. And if you listen to Bob Starkey, you know what you need to do? When Bob Starkey's gone, you need to get one of them cardboard cutouts and put it in his chair. You got to think like MX. Get his license plate or something. His license card, and put it there. You got to start a little bit more creative, like Preacher did. He had the, I'm not going to say, but what is this going to cost me now that you've done this to the ICE agents? You should have said, you know what? I really don't want you to gather here. Now, I look at these police officers in Hammond. Police officers support police officers, I'm telling you. It's a big clique, and you ain't going to get in it.
Well, but here, MX, so that becomes an interesting question, though, about what happened in Chicago last week, where you had CPD being told to stand down in the support of ICE agents, though. I mean, that becomes an interesting thing. I heard the calls where they were told point blank, slow down, stand down, don't go help them. I mean, that becomes a dangerous escalation where you have law enforcement basically at odds with each other and who supports who. That sets up for a dangerous situation.
Now they can support them. Now they could support them. So they're trying another way to block the National Guard.
Well, and that becomes the thing. If the local police,
girl.
Right, and that becomes the question. If the local police aren't going to support ICE when they need backup, then what are your options? You have to bring in somebody to support them, right? I mean, again, this is a yin and yang thing. This is a cause and effect, and the fact that both sides are basically, it's revisionist history. Both sides are saying, well, no, this is what they did. Well, let's talk about what your side did. Let's talk about how we got here. Let's have an honest discussion about how we got here. And that's the problem, is nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to say, well, he did it, and nobody wants to talk about their role and how we got here.
Okay, now wait a minute now. The Chicago cops can go in there and help. But I'm talking about my pocketbook. I'm talking about that they can go up to 2.9% in the Lake County income tax. We're at 1.5. They're talking about it's already been voted in, a 1.2% tax for Hammond. You know that's going to happen. We're in debt, $246 million. I'm tired of people digging in my pocketbook. Did we really need that train? I understand the bike trails. It does beautify stuff. But there comes a time in anywhere. It's called privilege of rank. That when you learn that at the mill real quick, you got to keep your mouth shut. And calling ICE agents clown, and then Jason Gore, and I'm not blaming him one bit. He's just trying to get elected. But I want to know what he thinks about calling his fellow officers clowns, because I get beat up. I got friends that call me up. It's like I'm the black captain on this MX cartoons, and people message me. What does Jason Gore think about that? So, then I see Hammond Police. They don't like being called clowns, because if you call one police officer clowns, you call them all clowns. But you know what? That's fine.
MX, it is
But
7.
what's it going to cost me?
It is 7 o'clock in the region. You're listening to AM 1230. 104.7 FM. I know you hate it. I got to do it. Stay out of trouble. But MX, you know what I want to talk about later is I'm going to talk about how we got here. And I'm going to take everybody back to March 11th, 2016, UIC Chicago. You were there. I was there. Do you remember? You remember that night? You remember that night that Donald Trump tried to come to Chicago and they blocked him from coming? And so I want to talk about this in the next hour. I'm going to talk about how we got here. Because I remember coming on these airwaves the very next day, March the 12th, 2016, and I said, Trump is a guy that holds grudges. And I don't know that Chicago is going to want, if this man wins the election, I don't know if you're going to want what's going to happen next. And so, again, we all act like this just started yesterday. And I can pinpoint the exact moment. And it was March 11th, 2016. That Chicago made a grave mistake in not letting President Trump come to the city to have his rally. And this is where that all started.
You know what? I remember that well. And the guys I was picking on was, I think, the Antifa boys. Remember I took a picture with them?
Antifa.
We didn't even know they were Antifa.
Yeah, but there were thousands of people. And I was so happy
to see you, Chuck.
Yeah.
I was so happy to see you in that melee. The Chicago police had blood running down their face. The Chicago police squared up with somebody. Remember that?
We're going to show the clip here in a little bit. We're going to play that clip in the next hour while I talk about it. We're going to remind people of that night, because I think for me, this is where it was bound to go, and it started on that night. So I'm going to talk about that in the next hour, MX. I do have to take a break.
Okay, thank you.
So I appreciate the call.
What's your one job you got to do? What's your one job?
I'm going to get Gore on to talk about McDermott.
Yeah, what do you think about calling police clowns? I got to hear this one. That's like calling all dirt bike riders clowns. I don't like it. All right, bye.
Bye, MX. Appreciate the call. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more Summer of Chuck here on WJOB. Hey, it's 7:05 in the region. We got lots of news to talk about, both locally, nationally, internationally. But let's hit the most important thing first, which is your commute to work this morning. Taking a look at traffic, things here in the region looking good. 80, 94, 65, Skyway Toll Road, everything looking good here in the region. As far as the Chicago side, you got the usual building traffic going into the Dan Ryan, into the city. Other than that, things looking good in Illinois as well. But obviously, if you see any issues, 219-845-1100. Let's take a look at weather.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 55 degrees with highs of 73 and lows of 59. Should be having mostly sun and mostly cloudy later tonight. Tomorrow and Tuesday we'll be having highs of 68 and lows of 56. Should be mostly cloudy. And then Wednesday we'll be having highs of 65 and lows of 50. Should be cloudy in the morning and then times of clouds and sun in the afternoon.
Thank you so much. So we've got big news coming out of Israel. We have President Trump just spoke earlier. The 20 remaining hostages have been freed. The several thousand of the Hamas prisoners have been released. So, again, great news out of Israel. Ceasefire, 2 years in the making, going back to the October 7th massacre. We're going to get into that. The boss is going to come sit in. We're going to talk about that. But there is a little bit of local news I wanted to get into first. So we've got a couple of stories here in the region. So let's start here on Saturday morning. So there's a tragic crash early Saturday morning on Route 30 in Austin and Cherville. Claimed the life of a Lake County correctional officer. This happened around 4 a.m. for reports of a serious two-vehicle collision. One individual suffered significant injuries, was airlifted to Chicago Hospital for emergency treatment. Hours later, Lake County Sheriff Oscar Martinez confirmed that the injured victim, later identified as correctional officer Ronald T. Jones, 58, had died from his injuries. Officer Jones was off duty at the time of the crash. According to the sheriff's office, Jones' vehicle was struck by another driver who fled the scene after the collision. Late Saturday evening, Cherville police confirmed that the suspect was taken into custody, and the department stated that the investigation remains active and ongoing, with formal charges pending review and acceptance by the Lake County Prosecutor's Office. So Sheriff Martinez expressed deep sorrow, says our hearts go out to Officer Jones' family, friends, and colleagues, and to everyone whose lives were touched by this dedicated public servant. We ask that the community keep them in your thoughts and prayers during this difficult time. Authorities have not released the details of the crash, and police continue to urge the public to respect the family's privacy as the investigation proceeds. You hearing anything?
I am deeply sorrowful for that situation. It's awful. Not exactly sure what happened. I'm sure it will come out over time, but it's just awful.
Yeah.
Ron Jones was part of the game for a while, and he will be deeply missed. Our condolences go out to his family.
So one of the things, it's a sort of unconfirmed rumor, may have been somebody going the wrong way on Route 30, which of course, it's early in the morning. You're, I don't know how you do that, but I can see, so that's sort of one of the things I'm hearing. It may have been a wrong way accident, which happens from time to time on divided highways, but obviously.
On divided highways, I've seen it before where people, I don't know, whatever, just confused or don't know it.
It was a little foggy that morning. It's like one of those things. It's a little foggy. You're making a left. You're not sure where you're going. Next thing you know, you're on the wrong side. So again, just
hopefully that's what it was and not what everybody thinks automatically.
Right. Well, and the fact that the driver fled the scene, obviously that means that there's something else going on that we'll find out more about here in the coming days.
Did you get that from Region News Source?
That came from Region News Source.
And let's give Paul Goddard his due. I used one of his pictures for my Substack, which I am now writing. Did I put you on there as a subscriber?
Oh, you didn't? No, I didn't subscribe yet. I will certainly do that.
Why won't you subscribe?
I will. You got to send me a link. I know you've been talking about it.
No, I've been doing it.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you to the 42 subscribers I have that read it. But, it's weird. A lot of people read it, but they don't subscribe.
Paul is saying a T-bone crash, not a head-on. So maybe the person ran a red light at Austin. That's another possibility.
Can you answer a question for me about Paul Goddard?
Yes. He's listening right now.
How does he, literally, how does someone stay on the game of news and, mostly crashes and tornadoes?
Why don't we bring him in sometime and ask him? Because here's one of the things. And
again, bring him in next time.
I don't want to digress too much, but again, I've been in this game a long time as of you, and I said, even covering Chicago news for a long time, after a while, you go to these fatal fires where children are killed. You meet the mother of somebody whose kid was shot.
And you got to get a quote.
And you have to talk to him. Somebody's kid just died. Like, oh, man, I have to talk to somebody. It really, again, I kind of think of us as sort of the next line of first responders, right? Talk about there's just a lot there. You're there. You feel that heaviness when there's a fatal fire, when there's a shooting. You're there in the thick of it, man. There are times I got there before the police. And again, it's sort of one of those things where after a while, it really, especially when you have kids and things like that, and you have somebody the age of your children is killed, and it really affects you. I can understand how it really affects first responders, and
you have to do your job. People want to know what's going on, and sometimes you have to, hey, to the mom or whatever who's there crying or whatever, you got to ask them, hey, is there anything you want to say or anything, and oh, he was a great kid or something like that. I remember my first day here at WJOB, there was a call on an accident by the Hammond post office.
Okay.
And they said, well, hey, Didlo, you're the only one here. You went to college, so figure it out. So they sent me out there, and it was right across the street from the Hammond post office, 1984, 1985, whatever it might have been. And someone had come out of the post office and then just ran into a house hard with their car. And I showed up before the police guy got there, like you did.
Yeah.
And I knew who it was.
Right.
It was Mr. Rabin, if you remember Dan Rabin of Rabin's Appliances. And I'm like, oh, my God. And so, I'm like, pushing on I know you're not supposed to touch him, but I know the guy. And I'm like, I know who he was. My dad knew who he was. And then finally the cop showed up, and, he had gone away for a second. And he goes, no, man, he's passed.
Wow.
There's nothing you're going to be able to do. And you do that over and over. Gosh, how many dead bodies have you seen? And I don't know how Goddard handles it, man. He goes to these crashes.
Right.
You think about first responders that have to do
That's
that.
what I'm saying is, really it takes a mental toll on you. And I think that's something we don't appreciate as much. We need to really spend more time and resources on that mental health aspect for first responders. So.
I remember when they had the two trains that hit each other. And
Miller?
Miller, when
they had the South Shore trains, the Gauntlet Bridge.
The Gauntlet Bridge, and they hit each other, and, it was severed body parts everywhere. I went out there, and it was like, oh, my God, but I didn't see nearly as much as the first responders. And from what I understand, it was just incredible gore. And I apologize to anybody that, had a relative or a friend in that, but the first responders had trouble for a while,
right.
And rightfully so. Hey, I have a question for you. Was ice around the region?
Well, let's get into that. Okay, we got so much news to get into, but we can talk about that a little bit. Why don't we take this call and then we'll talk about that? So go ahead. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
I'd like to thank the gentleman who called in earlier to remind the audience that Walt opposed the invasion of Iraq.
Yeah. Well, again, there's that consistency. It's something we've talked about before. Is this sort of there are people that are consistent and there's people that are hypocrites, right? And I think Jim sitting here, you guys have talked about that plenty of times about just sort of being consistent in your opinions. And far too often, that's what we find in politics is people's opinions differ based on what their party or what their, it's always interesting when I meet somebody and every once in a while I say to somebody, I said, it's funny how your opinions always match your party, right? No matter what your party line is, your opinions match. And I say every once in a while, why don't you ever push back and just ask questions about why do we feel this way? Why do I feel this way? It's just such a coincidence that you always agree with your party. So go ahead. Good one.
Well, as it turns out, the invasion of Iraq was a bipartisan war.
Right.
Both leaders of both major parties supported the invasion of Iraq adamantly. The media supported it as well. There were voices like mine over local radio saying, "Stay out of Iraq. You're talking about playing with a disaster." And I was called a traitor and all the rest of it. But my company consisted of, for example, the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, an Army general, said, "Stay out of Iraq. You're playing with fire." The former commandant of the Marine Corps went public and said basically the same thing. But there's more. The Pope, for example, sent his foreign policy secretary to Washington to plead with Bush Jr., don't invade Iraq. You threaten destabilizing the whole Middle East. Another party, Putin, he opposed it as well. I mentioned I was at a conservative libertarian luncheon in Chicago. They have once a year, and I mentioned that at the table. And the guy, there was a guy who apparently followed the Middle East. He gave me a double look, and he said, "You know, you're the first person I've talked to in a while that knew that Putin opposed the invasion of Iraq." And I predicted over your airways that the day would come, if you invade Iraq, the day will come while there was a bare majority of popular support for it, that you will regret the day that we invaded Iraq. And the polls, of course, have now confirmed that.
Hey, Walt.
Yeah.
I don't know why we're talking about
because
Iraq.
we're talking about basically getting involved in
we're sending 200 troops to Israel, right?
Well,
I was like, what a great day! This thing's all over, and then I heard they're sending 200 troops to Israel.
But again,
and I'm
that's the discussion.
Holy moly.
Walt and I are talking about sort of preemptively. I mean, we're talking about how young people, like imagine, like our producers, people in that age range, trying to understand how we got here, trying to understand like the idea of even saying, well, we were attacked on 9/11 and then by bin Laden, but we went to Iraq.
All right,
I'm going to explain that to somebody.
I'm going to tell both of you guys something I tell Kuziak.
Yes.
Nobody cares.
I understand that.
Walt, nobody cares. I mean, it's an instantaneous
and that's the
world.
problem, though. That's
if you're going to go back and talk about Iraq and Bush first, Bush Jr., I mean, literally there are things to learn from that in maybe long-form podcasts or long-form blogs, but for the most part, and like when Kuziak will come in, he goes, "I'm going to talk all about good news and all the good things," and I'm like, listen, you talk about what is out there right now, and I have a question for you. What's going to happen in Chicago and the region with the coming of ICE, mostly from Texas?
So why don't we get Walt's opinion, and then we'll take a break, and we'll get into all of that. There's a lot going on with local mayors and ICE protests and things like that. Walt, give us your opinion, and we're going to take a break.
Well, first I want to remind your audience that ICE is enforcing the law of the land. They're enforcing our immigration laws passed by Congress. They're not doing anything that other than doing their job. Yet you have now the the mayor of Hammond and mayor of East Chicago.
And Gary now.
A lot of the Democrats locally, they like to say, "Oh, we're not the Democrats like in New York or Chicago or L.A." And the mayors, Democrat mayors of Hammond and East Chicago, have shown that they are. At the end of the day, why make a fuss over the fact that the ICE people quietly used the parking lot for the Hammond Police Department to assemble and then move on? I mean, why are they making a big fuss about that? Let's say, the area is filling up with people from Illinois. They bring a lot of trouble, bad driving, and worse. If a situation arises where they need outside help, like the feds, and Trump is still in power, I can tell you, Trump is going to say to you, "Go fly a kite."
Thank you, Walt.
Thank you. Let's do this. Let's take a break. We're going to come back. The boss is here.
Do you want me here?
I do want you
Why is
here.
Bob Starkey calling in?
No. Bob Anderson is calling in.
Who's Bob Anderson?
He's the guy who does a show here on your airwaves on Tuesday nights.
Oh,
Bob
the
After
ghost
Dark.
guy.
The ghost guy.
There was another Bob Anderson who used to be on the air here, and I go, I think he's dead. But you're
that's
talking
not the
about
one that's calling in.
Yeah,
So,
the
okay,
guy,
let's take a break. We'll be back with more Summer of Chuck and Jed here on WJOB. Okay, we're back at 7:24 in the region. Jed and I got a little distracted. Our buddy Mike from Hammond Firefighters, local 556, bringing the goodies this morning. If you don't follow them on Facebook, they had a great story about retrieving a cat from a sewer in the Menards parking lot. But while they were retrieving the cat, they also found a loaded handgun. So I don't know why the cats have gats, and I think that was a Dr. Seuss book. And, of course, Jim, as soon as food comes in, he wanders off too. He's like, hey, Jim, we're doing a radio show over here. He's like, I want to talk about ice, and he wanders off to get a muffin. This is why this is why we give him that wireless, so he could just walk out and go eat a muffin, come back. But we wanted to talk about what's going on with ice here in the region. So yeah, thanks, buddy. Thanks for the goodies. I can't wait to have one after the show's over. Hey, why don't you come in? You want to talk about ice, and you're out there having a muffin, having a bagel. Your coffee was over here. I don't know what you did with it. He said, "Is it okay? Come on the radio." I said, "It's fine, but you got to come on the radio. You can't."
I did not ask to come on the radio.
You said, "Is it okay?"
No, you said, "Hey, you want to come on?" And I go, "Is it okay?"
Revisionist history. You media people always rewriting the past. The Santa Maria Bakery on Kennedy Avenue in Hammond.
Can I do some instruction here?
To who?
Lynette, please do the weather.
Okay, hang on. It's not 7:30, but we will do traffic and weather. Okay, go ahead. Hang on.
294 around the city looks pretty good. 80,
94, 65. Everything's looking good. You've got the usual slowdown. Bishop Ford into the Dan Ryan heading to the city. Other than that, things looking good in Illinois. You should have a pretty good commute here for Monday morning. Let's take a look at weather.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 55 degrees with highs of 73 and lows of 59. Should be mostly sunny and then mostly cloudy later tonight. Tomorrow on Tuesday, we'll be having highs of 68 and lows of 56. Should be mostly cloudy. And then Wednesday, we'll be having highs of 65 and lows of 50. Should be cloudy in the morning with times of clouds and sun in the afternoon.
See, I didn't even talk about like the inbound Eisenhower or anything like that. I know better.
Did you just take a picture of my Gmail?
No, I'm taking a picture of, you've got a Band-Aid on your webcam. That's what I'm taking a picture of.
You know what? I could figure out how to log into somebody's webcam. If you go on to the internet and say, how do I log into someone else's webcam? It's not that hard.
Well, that's why I want to take a picture. I mean,
and I don't like people like, I put this up on a thing and I'm getting dressed and the wife's getting dressed. And I'm like, these are easy to get into.
It's crazy that we live in, even like the idea of having these cameras in your bedroom and your living room and stuff. And it's crazy how much faith we put in technology. But okay, so let's get back on target.
You got a bunch of people waiting to talk to you.
Do we? Okay, we got 3 calls. We didn't even get. How do we even get through? I don't even bother. Like I just come in, I say good morning, and people call.
All right, before you do that,
go ahead.
Why? I'm trying to teach these young students an attitude of just relax. It'll all work out.
On Mondays?
Every day.
Yeah, okay.
Every day. All these people, they learn the attitude. They don't, and then they get hired somewhere else because they know how to fix things and they know how to stay calm. Chuck comes in here, he's all rattled. Oh, this isn't working. That's not working. And
okay,
so
Lena,
slow down.
So I think he showed his hand, Lena. So what he does is he comes in here on Sunday nights. He unplugs stuff so that when you come in on Monday, you have to troubleshoot without getting worked up. So it's like that when you're teaching somebody to fly a plane, you're like, okay, I'm going to turn us upside down and you figure out how to fix it. I mean, that's basically what you're doing to these poor people.
You have learned the attitude, I think, already.
I was calm about it because I knew Chuck would fix it.
That's not the that shouldn't be the attitude of Chuck will come in and save us. It's got to be, don't wait for Chuck.
That's been our attitude for 20
for 15
years.
years now. Right.
All right. So why am I here again?
We were going to talk about peace in the Middle East. We've got a
I want to say thank you first to Mike Hull of the Firefighters Union and Santa Maria Bakery. Will you eat one of those out there?
Those look beautiful. You
they're unbelievable.
Muffins and all kinds
it's
of
like
stuff.
a Mexican
and then you bring
bakery.
this bagel in instead. But
well, I can't. It's gluten-free.
I know, I get it.
Yeah, but Santa Maria Bakery, 7024 Kennedy Avenue in Hammond, 219-588-2510. Unbelievable muffins and really highly decorated, like cupcake kind of stuff. And I never heard of them, so there it is.
Okay, so let's take some calls. We're going to get into this whole thing with ICE and the protests and the mayors. We've got another hour, so hopefully we can get to that before he got distracted again. Okay, let's take some callers. Good morning, caller, on the air.
I don't understand what the big deal about this ICE thing is.
Okay, well that's what we want to talk about. So go ahead. Why isn't it a big deal?
They're doing their job. They're upholding our law. They're not. They didn't take something out of a playbook and made something up. They're upholding the law. That's all they're doing. And they're no different than any officer you see in Northwest Indiana. They're doing their job. And you have one guy that he was in the Navy, right, Mr. McDermott?
Mm-hmm. He was.
Right?
It's on a submarine.
So he took an oath to defend our Constitution. The same that these guys are doing. And got the nerve to call them clowns. I think that's pretty pathetic.
So here's the thing. We know that for many years we've had FBI, for instance, is they help us. They provide resources when you're talking about these interstate issues between Chicago and Indiana. We know that even the Border Patrol, for instance, you see them occasionally going up and down 8094. So we know that federal agencies are here. We know that it is not uncommon to have federal agencies working hand in hand with local government. So why is this different? So that's the point that you're making, and that's what we're asking. Why is it that the 3 local Democratic mayors have come out against ICE? Why is it that Mayor McDermott, for instance, came out last week and said ICE was using his police parking lot as a staging area. Adrian Santos, same idea. He came out with a statement because they were using the cemetery parking lot, and they basically said, you are not welcome to use our parking lots and our resources. We know that ICE has been in the Hammond, East Chicago area the last couple of days. There was a protest in front of the East Chicago City Hall on Saturday. And so this becomes that discussion. You're making a valid point of these resources have always been here. Why now? Why now is it becoming an issue?
Hey, is this hey, Terry?
Yo, what's up, brother? Hey, I read your Substack. It's pretty good. Those copperhead snakes sound pretty scary, though. I hate snakes. I hate snakes.
If you guys, what I do now is I write a kind of a blog. It's on Substack. It's called Jed in the Midwest. But I went to South Carolina, and they're getting ready. I went with a bunch of region guys. There's 20 of us, and we're sitting there, and they give us this talk. At the beginning, they say, don't go into the woods if you're bald, because it's copperhead hatching season, and if you step on a nest, the young ones will come at you, and they won't stop biting you until they die, and you could die. And I was just scared the whole time. I'm like, if my ball went within 10 feet of the woods, I didn't go. Nope, forget it.
Dude, I'd be terrified.
I was hitting a 5-iron down the middle of the fairway all day just because everybody's like, well, why don't you hit your 3-wood? I go, I am not going to risk that. I got to walk over near that little woods to get my ball. But anyway, thank you for reading that. By the way,
I'd be terrified.
I played the coolest golf course. I didn't really like this thing called Legends. It's like world famous. It's wide open, link style. It was windy. And then I went to a really old course, 150 years old. All these trees and Spanish moss called Heritage at Pauli's Island. What a difference, man. I could do that every day. Links course, though, you could keep it.
Yeah, I did something different over the weekend.
You went ice fishing?
No, I went and saw my first show at the Hard Rock Casino in Gary.
What'd you see?
Def Leppard. It was freaking awesome, man. It was so good. I can't even tell you how good it was.
You didn't go on like WJOB tickets or anything, did you?
No, I bought them myself.
All right. How much were they?
Dude, so listen. So we were sitting at the bar. We went like 3 hours early to gamble and have some big boy pops. And we were sitting at the bar and we were talking to the bartender. And I'm like, man, I can't believe this. It was $700 for 2 tickets for me and my wife, you know. And I couldn't believe it. The bartender, she looked at me. She goes, "Oh, you guys did pretty good." I go, "Huh?
Really?
$700 for 2 tickets and we did good?"
Hey,
she goes,
sorry. Hey, is Joe Elliott still the singer?
"Oh yeah, yeah."
Really? God, I saw him in like the late 70s with Def Leppard. He was kind of a young, strung-out dude. He wasn't the kind of guy you thought would have a long run, you know what I mean?
Man, they rocked it, man. I mean, they hit hard. Yeah, it was good.
Hey, wait, Chuck wants to talk about issues over here. And all we want to do is, you see, this is what I'm talking about, Terry. Lynette over here is nice and calm. And she's like, yeah, we'll figure it out. If we're on 10 minutes late, don't worry about it. Chuck over here is all freaked out that we're like 4 minutes late on a Monday morning. And then he wants to talk about issues all the time. There's a pace here. And wait, we're waiting for Bob Anderson.
No, he's going to call at 8. He's been on hold. He said, I'll call back at 8 o'clock. Because he doesn't want to talk politics. He wants to talk ghosts.
All right, Terry, you know what? ICE is in the region. I just can't believe we've heard the last of this issue.
I'll stand by what I told. I think I told you on Friday. Don't poke the bear. It don't work.
All right, man. Thanks.
So I wanted to play this footage. So, Lena, can you cue that up? That was from my Facebook.
How am I going to watch it?
We're not going to watch it. But so you were there, though. So we talked about this March 11th, 2016.
When Trump tried to come to the region?
President Trump, then candidate Trump, tried to come to UIC to have a rally.
Yes.
Surrounded by...
Was I there?
No, you were here the next morning when we showed the footage. So let me know if you're playing. Just play it in the background. No audio. I'll just... Here, do you want to go? I can show you on my Facebook.
Hey, if you had gotten here early, go ahead and play it. Are you playing it now? There's an airplane up there. Oh, that's when Trump comes in?
No, my video from Facebook. Is that what you're showing from my Facebook page? Here, come here,
She's
Jeff.
She's playing something with a plane on it.
No, here. So
well, anyways, don't play it. We'll just come back to
So look over there. This is is that what she's showing? No, that's not
what she's showing.
So Lena, the protesters. You have the police and the protesters. So is that what's showing?
No, it's the live of President Trump.
No, close that and open up the next page, which is the Facebook page. So open up the Facebook video. So you see that with the police.
Trump in the Middle East?
He's in Israel right now speaking about. He was in Israel earlier. We broke in and played a little bit of that. So you see that other video on Facebook?
Yep.
So go ahead and play that. So this is what we're showing. So this was March 11th, 2016. UIC. I came in the next morning with you and we talked about this. And this is what I said way back then.
I remember.
I said, President Donald Trump holds grudges. I said, and Chicago is looking at this, keeping him from coming, canceling his event as a victory. I said, this is a man that holds grudges, and he will, if he wins the presidency, this will come back to haunt Chicago. He will hold grudges. He will get back at you for this. And again, is it that simple? No, but I'm saying that this is the problem, is that with these two parties, this back and forth poking the bear, this is exactly what I expected was going to happen going back to March the 11th of 20. This is exactly what I expected was in for Chicago. It's like, really? This is what's going to happen. If you want to play games with this guy and then he wins the presidency, good luck. Good luck, because he's going to make your life hell his entire presidency. And that's exactly what he's doing right now. He's bringing in ICE to cities like Chicago and Portland. He's bringing National Guard to Memphis. And he's going, look, you want to play games? That's fine. And this is that two-party, that back and forth that I always talk about, Jim, when I talk about the pendulum swinging. It swings right, it swings left, it swings right. We never find balance. And that's what we're dealing with right now. It's swinging to the right again, and everybody on the left is outraged and protesting and wearing giant frog suits while being maced by ICE.
And you're all upset.
And I'm all upset because people's lives are being affected. I mean,
but here's the thing. And this is why you guys are doing it now while I try to fix up my sports network that has gone away from me and has grown way too quickly for us to handle it. So I appreciate you being here. But what is so interesting to me is, like, I'll come in here and I just want to screw around. And I want to teach the producers, take it easy. We've been here 102 years. We're going to be here 103 years. Just take your time. You are on it. You're like all twisted up by it. Kuziak's all twisted up by it. Dabberton's all twisted. Verley. And now we have Adriana. She may be the most twisted.
And I want to bring her on a Monday and have a discussion.
And Starkey comes in. He's got the bug now. He's all twisted. I mean, like, there is a slight entertainment element to all of this.
There is
going on.
There is an entertainment. Get your popcorn, and that's why we said this is the best radio station in the country, because every morning you can come in here and you don't even need. I got like 3 things written on my notepad because there's so much going on. You can just talk, take phone calls, and get into it.
You want to take one now?
Not really, but so here's what I want to do though. Here's what I want to do before I take phone calls.
He's too serious.
No, but here's what I want to put out there, and I want to get your take on this. Understand, this goes back to how we got here. So you've got both sides. You've got people on the left, for instance, saying this is just Trump just sending people in. We were innocent victims. We had nothing to do with this. He's picking on us because we're democratically controlled cities. Here is the reality of the situation. The reality is, and kind of like what the last caller said, the ICE agency originally came into cities like Chicago and said, look, we want to work with you. We want to be in the prisons. We want to be in the courts. And we want to grab people that you are prosecuting. So when you arrest somebody who's here illegally, we want to grab them and start the process.
Are you going to do this for a while? Okay, take a bite
of your bacon. But so this is the problem, is that these democratic cities had the opportunity to work with ICE. They came in and said, look, we want to be in your jail system. We want to be in the court system. And when you bring in people, we're going to identify those that are illegal, and we want to deport them. Easy enough. We want to deport criminals. We don't want to be in the streets. We don't want to be going through apartments. We just want to be in your system taking out criminals. And what did they do? They said, no, we're sanctuary cities. They go, oh, okay, you want to play that game? And this is why you have Black Hawks of National Guard and ICE rappelling into buildings in Chicago now, because they wanted to play hardball. And this is that back and forth. And here's the sad reality. ICE wanted to take out criminals. But Chicago, New York, Portland, they wanted to play hardball, and now they're grabbing, the taco man, the tamale lady. Now they're grabbing those people. They wanted to leave those people alone. We wanted to leave those people alone. I said, leave the guy who's been here for 20 years working construction. Leave him alone. He's just doing his job, taking care of his family. Leave him alone. But these cities said, no, we're going to play hardball. And
that's how you look at this.
They are the unfortunate victims of this. They are pawns in this situation. There are people being pulled out of their cars by ICE because the cities didn't want to cooperate.
That is a very convenient story.
Okay. Why?
Because it says, all right, and you're laying the blame on J.B. Pritzker.
No, I'm saying the back and forth. The two, J.B. Pritzker, who now is campaigning for election because he wants to be president. All of this is campaigning. All of this is posturing so that he can win the election.
So if you weren't so steadfast in latching on to the issue and trying to fit it into libertarian policy, it would be, just step back for a second, and this is what I would ask Lynette to do, and I've asked Adriana to do, and Semino and all this. Just let everybody else fight it out, and then just kind of step back and look at what's going on. We were there in 2016. We knew Trump was going to come after Chicago in some way. He's going to go after Portland and say, oh, it's blood on the streets, when that's not going on.
And there's a farmer's market.
There's a farmer's market.
There's a marathon, and he's going to. But again, that is the two-party hyperbole that is getting us into this situation.
So I agree with that, but you have to realize that, in my mind, the one danger to the way we have evolved and put people in power and generated, info, computer, digital gajillionaires, is that we have to divide people.
Right.
We have to divide them. If you're up top and you got a bunch of money and you're in on this game, what would be the most dangerous is if people realized, hey man, we're all people, we're just families, and we want the same things, and I can't hate you and I won't hate you. And that is not acceptable right now. What is acceptable?
Taking responsibility is out of favor.
That's one is saying, oh, this is them, because a lot of people leave here in the morning and then they'll go watch Fox all day. And then I could tell when they call in that they have a Fox talking point, because I've done the same thing.
Right.
I've listened to it later in the day. And then you have the other side, and you could tell all day long they've been watching MSNBC or listening to some of the liberal podcasts. Absolutely. And I could feel the talking points. And I think what's happened is that you're right about one thing. We are a little bit different in the region. And we have maybe not our mayors or whatever, but we're a little bit different, and we really don't fall for that. You know what I mean? Now, there are people that are, they get, especially when you get older, you get nothing to do all day, so you might as well be part of one team or another.
Is it interesting, can I ask, is it interesting how when you see, Saturday was a little bit different, when you see like the people on Ridge Road on a Saturday, who are they? They're skewing older. They're much older people. Because, like you said, it seems like they're the ones that are sitting at home watching CNN, watching whatever, being sort of you want to say radicalized by cable news
all day. I mean, you can't not. I mean, I'll go home and I'll turn on Fox for a little while, and then I'll realize, I go, man, if you just listen to this all day, it's almost like I took they called it mental conditioning when I was in college.
Yeah.
It was part of the sociological research. And how do you mentally condition prisoners of war? And we studied Manson and how he mentally conditioned people. And
it's a gradual buildup, right?
Gradual buildup.
Well, and so here's
the same thing on MSNBC. If you just listen to this kind of like smug liberalism, and then you listen to like this kind of aggressive right-wing stuff.
But again, everything.
How can you not be drawn to it? You got to pick a team.
But here's the thing: everything's an emergency. Everything's breaking news, news alerts. Everything is, breaking news alert. We got this going on. You're right, though. It's a slow burn that people have been. There's a great South Park episode where one of the boys' moms is basically stuck on the couch watching cable news after 9/11, and she's just stuck watching the news. And remember, it was like anthrax scares and all these things. It's like constant breaking news alert. There's anthrax, breaking news. There's people doing that, and it was like one of those things where that's where I think a lot of this started. You can go back to the war in Iraq, whatever, but. There was this time when it was just everybody was glued to their TVs. Same thing happened during COVID, right? We're sitting here watching death counts on CNN. There was, tickers, who died in what city. I mean, it was just this constant barrage of this is stuff you need to know. It's life or death. And again, there's people that just can't break away from that.
So if you ask, like you look, Lynette, this is not brand new. It's 102 years old. We're doing right now today what they did 80 years ago. 90 years ago, 100 years ago, they didn't really have call-ins quite yet, but it's been about 90 years of having people call in every day. And I would be kind of like all turned around like Chuck or Kuziak or Verley or Adriana, but I was taught by Colby. And he would literally, I don't know why, he would bring me in his office and he's like, don't get so involved in that. Just enjoy the entertainment. And he taught me that this is always going to happen, but you have to kind of let it happen, and you have to respect everybody's opinion, but you have to understand that it's like a kid growing up. It's just a phase. You know what I mean? And you have to have that ability to kind of watch it, and if it's really ugly, which it is at times, then you have to find either some entertainment or you have to find some compassion. But what we're doing right now as a country is we have to be divided for big media companies to make money and for big politicians like Trump, like Gavin Newsom. We have to be divided or they got nothing.
I get that, but also we are at a point where you're starting to see people taking to the streets. Like right now in Portland, you've got people clashing with ICE and National Guard, people being maced and pepper sprayed and pepperballed. And I mean, you're getting the same thing in Chicago and Broadview. You're getting to the point where this is starting. It's one thing to have hyperbole on cable news or on Facebook. Now it's starting to spill into the streets. And that's the concern, is that when you start having this stuff, same thing happened during the BLM riots and things like that, where it was taking place in Griffith and in Crown Point and in St. John. People were taking to the streets. Both sides were on, opposite sides of the street. We almost had that here on Ridge Road a couple weeks ago, where you had the Trumpsters on the park side, and you had the anti-Elon people or whoever it was on the other side. That's when it starts getting troublesome, is when both sides are physically there in the street with their signs, all amped up. That's when I get worried.
Do you think there's any other real outcome to what's happening in this division in America other than basically two major possibilities? There's three possibilities, and I like the third, and I'll get to it. One is that, remember Revolution Dave Grabarczyk grew up over here in Bush, and then he was I coached his daughter, and she's pretty high up in the Air Force now. And he worked at BP, and he called in one day. He goes, Jed, I don't care what you say or anybody says. The only way this is all going to come to a head is there's going to be a revolution in America, right? And I'm like, you're crazy. And, maybe you're like losing it from breathing the fumes all those years at BP. That's one option, right? Now, another option is major trauma, right? Something bad
A
happened.
9/11 type event.
But worse. Okay? I
okay.
mean, honestly, if you look at the statistics, and you do, there is a 50% chance in the next 10 years that a nuclear bomb will go off somewhere, right? People don't ever want to talk about that. Well, what if one goes off by mistake, or somebody puts
dirty
it in,
bomb, whatever. Right?
Somebody puts it into a storage container, and then they send it to America, and it blows up in a port, something like that. And so you have major trauma that brings us together, right? But the third option is that we all realize that we're Americans at some point, and that we are able to actually shun the people who are all making money off of our division and building power off of our division, and we're able to come together peacefully and through dialogue and communication. Those are the three options.
So here's the problem, though. I think, and I talk about this quite a bit, as far as your third option, I think the majority of people that are listening right now, they're on their way to work, they're worrying about taking their kids to soccer practice, paying their bills, they're worried about food prices. They are not the ones that you need to be lecturing to. There is this fringe minority, let's say 3% of both sides, and they are trying to drag, there's this big group in the middle, whether they're slightly left, slightly right, they're trying to drag them to their side. We were talking earlier about classical liberals like Bill Maher, who his party has slid left and he stays in the middle, and he's like, he's equally critical of both Trump and the left now.
It used to be you were a big lefty if you watched Bill Maher,
right?
And now you're like a centrist,
and
it's kind of weird because I've always watched him because he did that politically incorrect, and I'm like, man, this guy doesn't care about anything. That's great.
So here is my concern, though. I have heard in the last couple of weeks, let's go back to since Charlie Kirk's assassination, I have heard from more people who traditionally didn't pay attention. They were busy living their lives. I have heard from more people in the last couple of weeks that have said, that was the event, or what's happening right now is getting me involved. It sort of, in a way, has radicalized them. Some to the left, some to the right. But what I'm seeing is more and more that fringe, they are starting to get to those people in the middle. They're starting to pick them away one by one. And that middle is starting to slowly shrink. And that is my concern, is that when that middle, that silent majority that just goes to work and pays their bills, if they start picking at them and they start getting them involved in the fray, that's where this hits the streets.
All right,
and that's where we have problems.
I have a slight disagreement there with you, in that I agree that the fringes have gained in awareness of themselves, and the weirder you get, you can get more likes on your videos. You can build your channel. The more aggression you push out, or the more aggression on either side. I get that, but I disagree with you on where we are in the cycle of just getting tired of it. And I point to one other one. When I gave this commencement speech over here, and the whole thing went down with the chancellor, and it was the number one story on Yahoo News for like 10 days off and on. And it was like, I can't believe it.
But who kept it going, though? And that's the thing. I remember watching like the news in Chicago. They went to Chinatown.
Yes.
Like, aren't you outraged by this? Like, what? What are you talking about?
And so listen, I said at that time, and I really kind of downplayed it because I too could have been canceled for just saying, hey, people, let's just have some common sense.
Canceled
here.
By association.
Yeah, no, but no.
Just being there.
No,
right.
just preaching common sense. And I said at the time, I said, this is the top of the market. There will be backlash for these politically correct mob, if you want to call it, and it's going to go the other way. Here we are 3 years later, right? We are in the midst of that, where you have the MAGA side, which has really gotten a lot of power and has really taken over everybody's consciousness. So 2022, you have the left and the woke and all that. They kind of top out. And then it goes to the right and the MAGA and all of that. I'm going to call it not quite yet, but I think at some point that will top out, and the people in the middle will kind of bring that and say, hey, we don't want all that noise and all that aggression. And it was the same way with the woke mobs. It's like, people are like, that's really kind of silly. Somebody says something stupid, and then we're gonna talk about it on millions and millions of things, and nobody really cared except Michelle Quinn blowing it up on the Post-Tribune. Okay, so I'm telling you that I see the other way. I see that it kind of topping out.
And that's the concern.
The other side,
when it hits that top is when everything boils over. I mean, when it's in that stage, that's when I get worried about, again, these clash. It's one thing to argue on Facebook. It's another thing to take to your town square and clash. And that's my concern, is where does this top out? Before we take a break, why don't we take a couple callers? I know we've got some people waiting. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning. Good morning.
How are you?
I've been on hold since you guys are talking about
I was taking calls all morning.
Yeah, I know.
He comes in.
I know. But I've been on hold since you were talking about traffic accidents and that wonderful correction officer that lost his life and now devastating the family. But the thing is kind of where Fifth and Bridge is in Gary. Okay, the old fire station, Gary Fire Station. But if you're coming west on 4th, because I have my students, I'm sitting in a passenger seat, and they're going down 5th, and then they turn around, come back, and then come down 4th. But if you're coming west on 4th Avenue, you come up the bridge, there's 3 lanes going west, and then coming east from like Industrial or Michigan Avenue, there's cars that don't realize right there at 5th and Bridge that road is a one-way road. Because I had a student, luckily it was the 3rd or 4th time I had him out there, car, which is not in this area all the time, didn't know that that's the one way and came right over to us. I got to look sometimes to see if they got signs do not enter one way, but that's the thing is, you got to be real careful and pay attention to signs, because like divided highways, you see so many accidents of head-ons and stuff like that,
Mike, I got a question for you. So what you're talking about is when you're going down 4th and then you hang a left to get over to 15th, I think, or whatever it is, to 5th Avenue. And it's a really horrible intersection and a very long light. And you could be coming eastbound off the bridge, and you could easily not know that it's a one-way. And you could do that. I don't know what happened in this exact thing, but what I want to point out is I went to the Borman redo, which is going to start. It's going to be the most technology-oriented stretch of highway in America. Okay?
Most expensive.
And most expensive. They're going to put all these gantry signs up. They're going to wire it. They're going to tell you that you could drive on the shoulder. They're going to tell you which each lane has a different speed limit. They're going to tell you can't switch lanes. It's going to have all of these directions every half mile. That's 14 miles. That's 28 massive Chicago White Sox billboards they're going to put up, okay?
Yeah.
Everybody's going to ignore them.
Yeah.
So hold on a second. So the guy from Wafco Towing comes in, and, they do the big ones. You know them. And he's talking about it, and one of the other towing guys came in, and one of the towing guys says, listen, that all sounds really good, but I'm telling you right now, there are a lot of truck drivers that cannot read English. What are you going to do now? So it's not just Spanish. He goes, there's a lot of Polish drivers now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Middle Eastern and
African drivers, and they can't read English, and you're going to put up all these confusing signs up on the Borman.
So how did they pass their driver's test?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's like now, state of Indiana, the federal motor carrier to commercial driver, you have to, now I know an officer, federal motor carrier that I have coffee with a lot, and they passed a law now that, if an officer pulls you over, federal motor carrier pulls a commercial vehicle over, he's going to ask you 3 questions. And if you can't answer them and you can't speak in English, he'll issue a ticket for not speaking, for understanding our language. And then when you go to court, your CDL will be voided. Okay, and then another thing is our testing site where we take the students to go get tested. The first thing they do is when you come up to that window to the register, if you can't speak English and read English, that's it. You don't even get tested. State of Indiana. But
I don't know how they're getting their license, but these guys that run these massive towing operations, because they're worried, Mike, that when they take the Borman, they're going to they're not putting in extra lanes. They're going to let you drive on the shoulders. And he's like, well, what happens if somebody breaks down?
Right.
And they're
going
to hit them.
Right.
This east and westbound Borman Expressway through northwest Indiana from the state line to basically almost like, I'd say, after you get past Portage, if they would do like Chicago, going downtown, you have your express lanes where no get-offs, no get-ons, and then you have one lane. It would stop a lot of that because you got so many people that are passing.
That's kind of what they're doing. But I mean, remember though, they spent like $2 billion rebuilding the Circle interchange, and I still sit in traffic there every morning. I mean,
it's just awful.
It's the human. You until you can take the human out of this equation. Like this is the reality. A lot of selfish people.
A lot of people from other states loop around right around Lake Michigan to get go through this area. And every day I'm hearing, I'm seeing, and about the accidents on 94, and I keep thinking, why don't they do what Chicago did, express lanes? Because anytime now that I don't drive a semi, good, I can go into Illinois, use express lanes, because majority of the time you're not going to have bad accidents in that, because people are from other states and other areas that are not familiar are going to use the express lane because they're just going through the area. They don't want to get out.
I don't know if I couldn't quite tell by sitting through you can go to indianaflexroad.com, and it's a whole website about the billion, I don't know how much money they're going to spend, hundreds of millions of dollars they're going to spend on the Borman. But one of the things that they're going to do, Mike, is when you're like going towards Porter County and you got to go to I-65 and it seems like you got to move over like 5 lanes. It's very difficult for newer or just nervous drivers.
Right.
So they're going to hold on. They're going to close all that. So Broadway and Broadway and the Borman and all the way to I-65, they're going to be working on for a couple of years, and they're going to completely redo that. Can you imagine?
But they just finished it, though.
I know.
They just finished it.
All right, Mike, we got to go. Thank you.
Hey,
thanks.
Can I say one more thing, and then I'll let you go real quick? People need to drive down Fifth Avenue and go east and look at Gary, because I go up and down that thing, and if you look at all those apartment buildings that are on your left side going east on Fifth Avenue, you look at the windows. Whoever owns those apartments and all that place, because I've been going up and down Fifth there. I'm not scared to drive through Gary. I love Gary. But the thing is if you look at those apartment buildings and look at the windows, whoever owns those apartment buildings have put brand new windows in it. And then coming back the other day, that parking lot building next to Century, it had all that painting on there. I come back last week. They primered it. They got all of it.
All right, Mike, I got to cut you off. Thank you.
It's 8:04 in the region.
Hey, you got Bob Anderson waiting. I'm out. Thank you.
12:30. You're listening to AM 1230, 104.7 FM in Hammond, Indiana. We'll be back with more after this. See, now he's the one that says I get all worked up. We had this nice, well-paced show, and he just comes in like a wrecking ball. I'm going to have MX make a meme of you on a wrecking ball like Miley Cyrus coming in on my show. So now I got to that's your meme, MX, if you're listening. Jed on a wrecking ball coming in and crashing the show. Okay, so let's take a look at traffic and weather. Traffic surprisingly light at the moment. Things looking good here in Indiana. Not much to report. 65, 80, 94, Skyway Toll Road, everything looking good. The trip into downtown also looking pretty smooth this morning. Obviously, it's Columbus Day, so I got to talk about that a little bit. So a lot of state and federal workers have the day off. So for the rest of us, we should have a smooth commute today because a lot of people are getting the holiday off. So, and we got to talk about that at some point in the day. This is a holiday again. It's Columbus is back, baby. So we're going to talk about that. But in the meantime, let's take a look at weather.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 56 degrees with highs of 73 and lows of 59. Should be mostly clouds and sunshine today, and later tonight should be mostly cloudy. Tomorrow and Tuesday we'll be having highs of 68 and lows of 56. Should be mostly cloudy. And then Wednesday we'll be having highs of 65 and lows of 50. Should be cloudy in the morning and then times of clouds and sun in the afternoon.
Fantastic. Thank you. Poor Bob from Bob After Dark trying to call in. We got loaded phone lines. So let's power through some calls so we can find a space for Bob. So good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, Chuck.
Hey.
My perception on why the Democrats are squawking about ICE, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of stems from the fact that old Trumpy boy ended up getting charged, indicted, and found guilty by a jury of his peers last year, and we still reelected him.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean that's kind of part of the bug up the Democrats' butts.
Okay, well, what about what's happening with Letitia James right now? She came after him. I mean, again, this is sort of that interesting thing in politics is you go after somebody when you're doing the same thing, right? I mean, so it's kind of like as an outsider here, I'm like, if you're going to go after somebody else for loan fraud, maybe you shouldn't be committing loan fraud at the same time. Just saying, right? I mean, come on.
Well,
go ahead. Well,
that's assuming there's something there.
Okay, well, we'll find out. Just like with the Trump
then.
cases, we'll find out if there's something there. If she was committing loan fraud, accused of loan fraud, and we'll find out if that's the case, right? I mean, that's the way the system's supposed to work. But again, it's so ironic, like this idea that both parties they go after people for something, and it turns out they're doing the same thing. It's just kind of fun, and like Jed said, it makes for good radio. But again, so let me ask you about my earlier point that the federal government originally, ICE. They wanted places like Chicago to cooperate with them in the court system. They wanted to identify people that had committed crimes that were here illegally to be deported. And instead of working with them, they said, no, we are sanctuary cities. We're not going to work with you. So again, I'm asking the average rational person out there, if you have a city where people that are here illegally, regardless of where they came from, are committing crimes, should they not be deported or should they be protected? That's the problem with this revisionist history is everybody's blaming the other side and not talking about how we got here in the first place.
Yep.
Yep.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Mm.
Yep.
We're dealing with this side, that side, this side, that side. Yo-yo up and down and back and forth,
right.
And
but again,
everything in between.
Right. But here's the problem: is that it's getting people. I mean, I was just watching in Portland earlier. You've got people dressed up like Pepe the Clown or whatever, getting maced by ICE. They're hanging out, and they're engaging. They're getting injured. They're getting arrested. People. So again, it's one thing to say, I'm opposing this. It's another thing to be facing federal agents, to be face-to-face. You saw the thing in Chicago where the people allegedly were ramming ICE vehicles. Again, if that's your neighborhood and you see cars crashing into each other and guys with guns jumping out, I mean, is that a point where you kind of go, this is worrying me that this has come to my neighborhood, that, there's people crashing into each other and pulling guns on each other. Like at some point you go, look, this is escalating a little further than I'd like to see. Yep.
Of course, though, the flip side is, though, do you run the risk of sending places to where things are like relatively calm and then escalating the dang situation?
That's a valid point. I mean, that's okay. So valid point is that the issue is when you send in more people, you're going to have escalation. So then, to me, the solution is you handle your business so that somebody else doesn't have to come in and handle it for you. Right? I mean, that to me is a rational way to deal with this, is you handle your business instead of politicking, instead of campaigning, and then other people don't have to come in and handle your business for you. At that point, you've lost control.
Always something.
It is. It is always something, and that's what makes for good radio, and that's why we're here to talk about these issues. And I try to talk about it without revisionist history, without being one-sided, and trying to talk about how did we get here and how do we, as Jed talked about it, de-escalate the situation. So I think at the end of the day, we all would like to see that. We'd all like to see this situation de-escalated, but as somebody who's going to be heading into the city in a little bit, I also am tired of seeing people getting shot. I'm tired of seeing the highways closed because people are shooting at each other. So at the end of the day, I just want people to stop getting shot. I want people to stop being assaulted, right? I mean, is that a fair thing, just to say, I want fellow human beings to be able to live their lives in peace and not have to worry about whoever assaulting them? I think that's fair, right? So, hey, I got to take some more calls. So I always appreciate the call. Let's take the next caller. Good morning, you're on the air.
Oh, Chuck.
Oh, Brad
Keep
Gimbel.
it cool. Yeah, keep it cool, Chuck. Relax.
Why am I getting all worked up, Brad? Why am I getting all worked up? There's nothing's going on. It's fake news, Brad.
Typical liberal in a mask. Let it all burn down because it'll all work out. Don't worry about it. Somebody in authority will fix it. Surely they did a great job with COVID. I mean, they didn't cause any more pains with those lies. And you know what? Speaking of lies, Chuck, Chicago's beyond dangerous. And look, I'm not a Republican. You know this. We're on the same side on many things and nobody can get it. But somebody got stabbed basically in front of City Hall yesterday and the cops wouldn't report it. They would not report it. It's unbelievable. So when everyone's like, I don't understand. Jimmy Kimmel wants everybody to tweet, show me your hellhole. It's not so bad here. I mean, if Pritzker's wearing a bulletproof vest and making fun of everybody. I mean, they're not reporting it, people. That's why you don't know the crime is there. Look, I don't care about the ICE people, and if they're truly criminals being deported, there's nothing I could do about that. They're criminals. You should be happy about it. There's going to be some people caught up in all the mess of it, but I mean, that's just what it is. Look, you can't go to Mexico. They'll shake you down for your watch there, okay? But what I do care about is when I'm sitting at the corner of 38th and Kedzie, and people come blowing through red lights, like 10 red lights, hitting other cars on the way, chasing these ICE guys to do what? To beep their horn? Innocent bystanders were hurt over there,
Brad,
Chuck.
to be fair,
Nobody reported that.
Brad, to be fair, they're driving like that before ICE was in town. I mean,
I'll agree with you there.
That's an interesting thing for people that don't go into the city often. You don't. I always joke. Only in Chicago can you turn a 1-lane turning lane into a 4-lane highway. I mean, again, just
for real.
The average person, if you're not, I go downtown nearly every day, and I see just the amount of disrespect I'm surprised there's not more road rage incidents on a daily basis. Just the lack of respect. I almost got hit by a car the other day. He was too impatient to wait for the guy. There's a guy that was nice enough to wait for me as I crossed the street, and the guy behind him wasn't so patient, ran around him and nearly hit me. And again, gave me the finger for how dare you be in the middle of the crosswalk. So again,
for real.
My goal in life is to never have to go there again. And it's interesting. Like I was telling Jed earlier, it's an interesting thing when I see the people, like the road rage. It's always amazing when you see somebody driving aggressively and you pull up to them. It's a little old lady with the big beat.
Yeah.
It's you never know who's going to be driving aggressive and honking at everybody. It's always funny to see this little old grandma honking at everybody and giving them the finger and riding their bumper. So it's a chaos that if you don't get to experience it, you don't understand just how crazy it is.
Not a clue. And you can't even get angry at that old grandmother because she might turn out and pull 45 on you and be like,
I say, go ahead, Granny. Feel free. I just turn on my podcast. I put on my cruise control and I just lay low because I know you can't even engage. I mean, we talked about the one summer there's like 75 road rage incidents on the highways. And again, it's not one group. It's not one individual group or one type of person. It's all kinds of people that are just at their boiling point. And it just, you're
for
not,
sure.
no, and here's the thing, like we talked about before, no amount of sending the National Guard in or whoever is going to fix this, because eventually they have to leave. You can't regulate this distaste for fellow human. You can't regulate that. You're not going to fix that. So I don't even know what to say.
No, they keep fueling it. You know, they keep fueling it. But real quick, I just want to change the subject because I know there's tons of callers coming in. My main point is when everybody's worrying about the tone of their melanin or their daily sexual preference of the day or their so-called culture, they've been stealing our money. And I don't know if you saw, but the biggest liquidation, $20 billion in the crypto industry, liquidated in minutes after literally minutes after Trump decided to put the 100% tariff post out on China. But this is the funny part, folks, that this is why when you're looking the other way, worrying about all of your feelings, there was a guy that came up with...
Hang on. Take your time and just go through this slowly, because I want people to hear this part. I know what you're about to say, and I was about to say it with Jed. Take your time. Don't rush.
$20 billion in liquidation. And a guy starts up an account, a brand new guy, 1 minute before Trump makes this announcement, and makes $88 million. Now, I'm calling inside job, folks, and I'm calling manipulation, and everybody wants to know what happened. And my point here is that everyone's like, oh, there's Brad again calling in about his crypto. No, because the next time it's going to be the New York Stock Exchange. That's what's going to happen,
Brad,
folks.
Here's my prediction, Brad. One day, Barron Trump is going to come forward and go, oh, by the way, I've made several $1 billion in the market by just talking to my dad over dinner. So again, so understand this, that there are people. So Trump made this announcement on Friday, and he talked about tariffs on China. The market went down like 2.5%. It is now recovered pre-market. We're back up like 1.5%, 2%. There are people that make massive amounts of money on those swings. You can make untold millions of dollars knowing ahead of time that this man, even if you're the guy that has to send out Trump's tweet, Trump goes, hey, tweet this out about China. Like, give me 30 seconds to log into my E-Trade account, and then I'll send that tweet for you, sir. So there are people that are making millions of dollars on these wild swings. And again, I joke that someday Barron Trump's going to come out and go, yeah, no, I'm a billionaire because I just, every time my dad opened his mouth, I traded on that. So there are people making money on these wild swings, and it's got to be somebody very close to the president. And someday, again, at some point, these guys got to pay taxes. It'll be interesting to find out who it finally is if we ever do.
But they can hold it, and then they can just borrow against it, and then they never pay tax.
But they were playing options, though. At some point, you got to report that. So, at some point,
at
some point, a White House staffer is going to go, oh, by the way, I made $88 million this year on my $80,000 a year salary. They go, wait, what? So, that'll be interesting. But again, it's like, that's the game, man. There are people that just get close to the president because they know I can make money off of this. I can make money just knowing this information seconds before anybody else. You can make tens of millions of dollars. And again, I was telling somebody earlier, I said, George Carlin told you about this 50 years ago. He said, it's a big club.
You bet.
And you ain't in it.
Yeah, and you know what? The problem with that is that when you explain this to people and say, this might have knocked out your neighbor or took out your nephew that was trying to do it and make some money to go to school and everything, they'll defend Trump and say, oh, come on. And that he didn't do that. And it's like, no, man, both parties are screwing us, and they won't stop until we say stop, and nobody can just do it. It seems like it's only you and I. It really is. So anyway, Chuck, get some other callers in there. This show is hot on Monday, man.
Appreciate it. Always appreciate the call. Let's take some more callers. Good morning, caller in the air.
Oh, hey there. Am I on the air?
Hey, it's Bob Anderson. You finally got through.
Yes, I did. Oh, hey there, Chuck. How are you?
Oh, hey there, Bob Anderson.
Oh, man. That was a riveting long time on hold there.
I apologize. We need to get a VIP phone line. As you know, things a little discombobulated here at WJOB, but it's all in good fun.
It's all in good fun.
Hey, so Bob Anderson, Bob After Dark. How long have you been doing Bob After Dark?
7 years.
Wow. So Bob After Dark. So and you've been you've been so kind to invite me on your show several times. Several times I've just crashed. Me and a Yeti just showed up in the middle of the show. It was all in good fun. But this is the first time you're joining us, and I appreciate it. I know you've had a long night, so I don't want to keep you too long.
No, you're fine. I just want to point out that it's interesting that I'm in the wrong time slot, Chuck. I get like 2 calls on my show on Tuesday nights. You get like hundreds of calls.
See, this is so lean at the other side of this. Jim says you got to be calm. Bob's the same way. Takes his time, does a calm show, doesn't get worked up. You don't get enough callers, man. This is why you got to get people worked up in the morning. You got to get you. But again, I'd love to have you because I'd love to have you come on more often because you talk about a very interesting, I talk a lot of politics. My wheelhouse is politics, but I also, and you always tell me, Chuck, don't talk politics on my show. Well, the good thing is we're not on Bob's show this morning. So,
oh, no.
But no, so you talk about really interesting things because, there is so much about the human experience that we don't understand. And I love, and one of the things, I'll go back a little bit, one of the things growing up I used to talk about, I loved this time of year on WJOB, an old dear gentleman named Richard Crow used to come on these airwaves and tell stories about ghosts here in the region and, the Klein Avenue ghosts and Reeder Road and things like that. And that was my favorite time of year was to listen to ghost stories and, or even, hear about different things going on because it was such a departure from what I knew. Right. And even listening to your show, I love, these stories come across about like Annabelle the doll. And I can't wait to tell Bob about it because they're so out there. But also it's like, man, it's such a crazy story. Right. I mean, it's just from a storytelling perspective, these things that happen, you talk about Mothman, Bigfoot, any of these things. It's just such an interesting thing to talk about. And I always enjoy listening to your show because you really get into the wheelhouse of telling these stories and sharing this stuff as news as it is. Again, like the Annabelle the doll story was news. It made the news and you talked about it. But you are calling in this morning to talk about an event that's going on this coming weekend. So tell people a little bit about that.
Yes. Pardon. So this upcoming Saturday at open doors start at the bar at 6 p.m. at Club Cuyahoga in East Chicago. We have the Sometimes Scaring is Caring Festival. It is a first-time thing where we're going to do a telethon for a charity, and we're going to be raising money for Extra Life, which is a charity that helps raise money for Children's Miracle Network hospitals. We have 3 paranormal speakers coming out. You're going to have Bob from Bob After Dark, WJOB's very own. I don't know what you would call me, the homegrown boy or whatever, the hometown hero.
Yeah,
there you suppose. And then we have bigger celebrities than me. Jack Chavez from Channeling Chavez and donating his time. And, we have Ghostly Podcast coming after that. So we have 3 of the biggest paranormal media presences in Chicagoland all coming together on this, donating time to raise some money for some sick kids. Because at the end of the day, this world's a scary place, but if we can make a kid smile, I guess it's all worth it.
I always appreciate it. For those of you that don't follow Bob on social media, he's always raising money for different charities. It's generally sort of, what is the one charity that you're generally raising money for? So it's the Children's Miracle Network.
Yes.
You do Twitch streams and all sorts of things to raise money. It's interesting that when I look at these communities, whether it's like the paranormal community or even, you have science fiction, the different cons, you have horror cons. I'm more of a horror guy. They're always, it's always funny when you see these stories that you have all these people involved in horror, but they're raising money for good causes,
Yes. And I'm very blessed to have the platform I do. I do have a fan base, believe it or not. WJOB listeners, you should be tuning in Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Sorry, shameless plug there. I learned from the best. I'm very blessed to have the platform I do, and it pays my bills, and I'm living okay, and I want to make sure that other people are doing okay. We live in such a scary world now. It doesn't matter which side of the political spectrum you lie on. I think everybody can agree that the world's a scary place right now. And if we can just help one another, that's always my mission in life, is to help one another. Maybe when we get to the afterlife, it won't be so bad.
Well, it's a nice escape from, and this is one of the things, obviously I think people know I work in television. It's always interesting. I get these notes from people that say, it's nice to be able to go someplace, to be able to watch. We show a lot of classic television, and people will write to us and say, hey, it's so nice to have a place where I can go and watch some old cartoons or watch some old TV shows, watch Leave It to Beaver, and take a mental break from politics, right? And it's sort of the same thing with the world that you're in. You get to sort of take a mental break from the world around us, and you get to talk about sort of these interesting things and find a way to make them fit into our society. And I really appreciate what you do, because again, people need that. Jed and I were just talking about how people are getting amped up, and he told me I need to scale it back a little bit. I'm getting too amped up. But again, there's so much serious things that are happening. It's nice to take a break from that. Even your show, it's nice to just take a break from that for an hour and listen to you and Count Panic talk about these stories. So I always appreciate that you guys do that.
Well, thank you, Chuck. And, there's two sides of the spectrum, and I appreciate what you offer to the table, too. Trust me. It's important to hear what you guys have to offer, because that's important topics. But when you need a break, I'm here to tell you guys ghost stories once a week, every Tuesday night at 9 p.m.
So this is where, I'm going to hit you with one thing, because I think this is really interesting. I want to talk about the UAP hearings for a minute. So this is an interesting this is where our two worlds collide. In the last couple of years, we've had an increase in sort of these, now we call it the UAP hearings. We had one just a couple weeks ago in Congress. So what are your thoughts just sort of coming off this? I mean, it's amazing because there are people out there. I remember, Bob, I was one of the first ones to break the story about the Demon House in Gary. We had Marissa Kwiatkowski from the Indy Star on the very next day. We talked to Father Maginot. We covered that story in depth here years and years ago in the afternoon. And I kind of said, look, guys, I mean, it was interesting because if you ever met Marissa, she's a very straight-laced reporter. And I said, I appreciate the fact that as an award-winning reporter, that you could write a story about something paranormal. Obviously, by the time I talked to her, it was a worldwide story, all this stuff. But I said, I appreciate the fact that you would take the story and write about it, whether you believe it or not. And this is what I always preface that story with, is that whether you believe in ghosts or not, whether you believe in aliens or not, or if we're being visited, there's a story here to be told. And the fact that we're having regularly scheduled UAP hearings in Washington tells us that there's something there that we're trying to get to the bottom of.
Yes, I need to start with an analogy that I always bring up to people about my kind of world. So if you think of my world, like my kind of world, my bubble, as a bowling league, and then there's different bowling teams. So as you were saying, you got the horror community, true crime, conspiracy, paranormal. You have the UFOologists. You have this, you have all these things, and it's just one big giant kind of bowling league. So it's interesting when the two worlds kind of collide a little bit. And in my world, in the paranormal, a lot of what we look at is what we refer to as pseudoscience, because we don't have actual proof data, things that are concrete. We might have evidence, but not yet. However, there is a group of people that have been talking about things for decades that people just used to scoff at and say, well, no, you're a crazy person. Well, how crazy can a person be now when you have congressional hearings talking about this phenomenon now? It's the first time we're ever looking at the world of the pseudoscience at an actual scientific eye, and it's exciting for me, not as a tinfoil hat watching Signs movie, but as somebody who talks about this sort of topic as my career. It's really exciting to see that my field is being brought up in front of people in DC.
Well,
it's
it was interesting even during COVID when the Tic Tac video went public. Fravor came out and they showed this footage of the Tic Tac and the different. They had radar, they had FLIR footage, they had all this footage of this thing off the coast of California. And it was kind of like by the way, here's evidence of here's the Navy releasing evidence of a UAP. And it was sort of like it's interesting because we can go back as far as like Roswell and things like that and talk about, because there's been this interesting crossover between the government, talk about X-Files, a TV show, was it Project Bluebeam and all these different projects to do. The government's been spending money on something, and Project Blue Book was the one I was thinking of. And for some reason, they've been spending money, and yet it's interesting when you watch these congressional hearings, if you've never watched one, the people in charge, like Congress, are basically being told, you don't have the right to know these things. And it's always interesting when you hear who you assume that Congress is in charge. You assume, I don't know if you've ever seen these, Bob, but I always talk about the time that President Obama was on with Jay Leno, and Jay Leno asked him about UFOs. He goes, they told me, it said, need to know and you don't need to know. And several President Bush, President Clinton, I think even President Reagan, they've all come out and said, look, I asked. They said need to know and you don't need to know. So who does need to know? So that was always interesting to me, is that the President of the United States on several occasions have been told you don't need to know.
Yep, and now it's the public eye, and you look at these stories of these people who have experienced not only witnessing it from the ground level, but even as far as abductions, et cetera, et cetera. You look at these stories that people have been ridiculing for decades, and now you look at them and you're like, oh man, maybe these people were onto something.
Well, that really, Bob, that really is the unfortunate part, is that so many people, whether you're talking about a police officer, an airline pilot, whatever, there's so many people whose lives were destroyed for basically coming forward and saying, hey, here's what I saw. And there are plenty of people in the world that say, so many of these people had to come forward in a clandestine manner because they were afraid. They saw what happened to their colleagues, and they said, so that's the whole question, is there's so many people out there that have seen or experienced something that are just afraid to talk about it.
There's a perfect case of that in Loveland, Ohio. I'll be very quick about it. There's a cryptid, which is a monster in real life. Think about for listeners getting the quick version of what a cryptid is. Loveland Frog, a Loveland, Ohio police officer lost his job for reporting this humanoid frog figure that attacked him. And his police department fired him until the second sighting, when it was reported again by the police. And so, yes, pilots have lost their jobs, or, in the very least, then they start losing their credibility, yada, yada. And it blows my mind now that my field of work is legitimately being looked at for once and not being as ridiculed as much as we do in the scientific community. And I'm sure in the scientific community there's still people that are ridiculing these UAP things, but I don't know what more to tell you guys. Look, it's pretty much front and forward now,
Right. Well, again, it's when you get to the point that we're having congressional hearings, there's something there. And the idea that you're having congressional hearings and Congress is being told, I can't tell you. We have to go into SCIF. We have to talk about it privately. I can't tell you publicly what I've seen or what I've heard, and that to me was very interesting. But, okay, so Bob, remind people again, what's going on this weekend?
Okay, so this upcoming Saturday in East Chicago, Indiana, Club Cuyahoga, we are doing the Sometimes Scaring is Caring Festival. We have 3 paranormal speakers coming out to do live shows. I'm going to be talking about ghosts in the region, and then we have the Ghostly podcast coming out, and Jack Chavez from Channeling Chavez is coming. We have some spooky vendors coming out. We have the Ghostbusters of Peoria volunteered to come out and, do the event with us because other Ghostbuster groups were too busy. That's how exciting this event is people from Peoria are coming out just to be a part of this event. And it's something really special that I've been able to kind of put together in a 6-month time. Remember, this is my first year doing it, so whatever I do is going to be a success. But man, I'm super, super excited for it, and it's only $5.
They say $5 a ticket. It's the cheapest thing that you're going to do all weekend. I'll be out there. We'll be doing, like you said, all kinds of podcasts. Bob After Dark, don't forget, Bob, tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, Count Panic. Just check it out. I mean, again, if you haven't taken the time, just check out the show. I enjoy it. I tend to not listen to it. I listen to it later. I listen to it on my drive into work, which is already scary enough. I like listening to you guys the next day. But you guys have a lot of fun doing it. Again, it's a fun sort of break from reality for an hour a week. I always enjoy it. You guys do a great job at it. So I appreciate everything you're doing for the children and for the region, Bob.
Well, of course. Thank you, Chuck, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. And we will see you on Saturday at Club Cuyahoga. Okay, there we go. Bob Anderson, Bob After Dark. Tune in tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. Really fun show. You'll enjoy it. I mean, again, just an interesting departure from the typical discussions we have on WJOB. Why don't we take a break? We got other callers we got to get to. Let's take a break. We'll reset. We'll talk about a few other things before we go. We'll be back with more after this. .841 in the region. Summer of Chuck. We had Jim in earlier. We were talking about a few different things. Had Bob Anderson on from Bob After Dark. Great event going on this weekend. I wanted to take a few minutes. So we talked earlier about traffic lighter than normal. Obviously today is, for those of you that are old enough to remember Columbus Day, we used to have Columbus Day, and then it became Indigenous Peoples Day, and now it's Columbus Day again. Because again, even holidays are something that become this politically contentious issue. I know a couple of my, being an Italian, a few different Italians reached out to me. So make sure you talk about the history of Columbus Day, because it's not just about Columbus. I know I don't even know if it was last year or the year before, we had John Biancardi on to talk about Columbus. I talked about, I made a trip to Philadelphia 2 years ago, and they had Columbus, the statue was in a box, and they had a court fight, and they had a fight to take him out of the box, and they took the box off of Columbus. It was like, again, this crazy thing. We had to go to court to decide whether there could be a Columbus statue in Columbus Park in Philadelphia. And again, it's such a crazy thing. And so I know a lot of people, so basically, we've had Columbus Day for over 100 years. And essentially what happened was, let's talk about this. Let's see how we got here. So let's talk about, so we had President Benjamin Harrison established Columbus Day in 1892 to honor Italians who were falsely accused and lynched in New Orleans in 1891. So in March 1891, a mob lynched 11 Italian Americans in New Orleans after they were suspected of murdering Police Chief David Hennessy, even though some had been acquitted. So this is the largest mass lynching in America. And so one of the things, again, if you're younger and you don't know history, we know, again, I come from an Italian heritage. I come from an Irish heritage, and two groups that were treated unfairly in the history of the United States. And going back to Columbus Day, younger people that don't know, they go, oh, well, it's about Columbus and Columbus this and Columbus. Well, it's not about Columbus. It's about the Italian heritage. And I think it's a great thing that Italians have a day. I think it's a great thing that Irish have a day, and Mexican Independence Day, and Pierogi Fest, having events to remember Polish heritage. It is such a great thing, and to see the variety of people that come out to these events, it's such a great thing. And Jed and I were talking earlier about the region being such a melting pot. It's a great thing to honor different people's heritages and to hear about them and to understand them and to share them with others. So again, as a proud Italian, I was making my wine the last couple of weeks, made sauce from scratch from the Roma tomatoes in my backyard. I made that wine, and I thought fondly of my grandfather who made wine in the basement in East Chicago when I was a child. And that's part of the American story, right? I mean, and so does that mean we shouldn't have an Indigenous Peoples Day? Absolutely. That's part of the story. But should it be at the expense of should it become this political football where we say, you know what, we're going to erase Columbus and replace him with Indigenous Peoples Day? It's silly. Columbus, the Italian Americans deserve a day, and the Indigenous people deserve a day. I have always said that it would make sense to have Indigenous People Day be the day after Thanksgiving. You talk about the Pilgrims on Thanksgiving. You talk about the other side, the Indigenous people, on that Friday. So again, that's part of the story, the Trail of Tears, all these things that we should be teaching young people about how we got here. It didn't start yesterday. It didn't start last week. It started 250 plus years ago. And that's the story that we need to make sure that our young children are being told. That's the full story, and not just the left or the right bias on this. And that's sort of the problem. I see that even today in schools. You talk about the bias in teaching and in history books and things like that. And that's something where I think that's an important thing. I think when we talk about how to get back to that point where we're on common ground, I think that's where it starts, right? I mean, you go to college and you're taught inaccurate or biased things about history and different people, and that's where that sentiment starts from, and it grows from there. So I'm proud that we're once again celebrating Columbus Day. I ordered some Italian American things on Amazon. They got delayed, so I didn't get to bring in my red, white, and green stuff. We'll save it for next Columbus Day. We got a few more minutes. We got some calls, so let's take some calls. Take one caller. You got caller? Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Well, happy Richard Gordon Hatcher's Day, there's going to be also it's also celebrating his birthday today.
Oh, fantastic! So Gary's got some events planned for today.
There's absolutely they're going to unveil Grant Street will become Richard Gordon Hatcher, Boulevard today, and that's at 11 o'clock. And of course, the media wants to come. They will be happy to see them because Richard Gordon Hatcher was the mayor of Gary, and it was the first African American mayor. And they have put statues up of Richard Gordon Hatcher here, and they will rename Grant to Richard Gordon Hatcher's Boulevard.
So it's 25th and Grant next to St. Timothy Church today.
That is correct.
At 11 a.m.
You know about that.
Yeah, I just found it. Special appearance by the Hatcher family. Reagan Hatcher's been on these airwaves. I found her to be a very dedicated public servant, serving the people of Gary. So again, same idea is that that is an important part of Gary's history and the region's history, and I hope that story as we move on, as time progresses, I hope that story isn't forgotten because that is an important story that's part of our history, right?
Absolutely. And again, that was supposed to have been done under the Karen Freeman Wilson administration, but apparently is happening under Mayor Eddie Melton's administration. And because apparently there was not some paperwork and probably politics got caught in it.
That gold government red tape, right? Everything, something as simple as honoring a man gets held up in red tape. But go ahead.
But again, it's being corrected, and it will take place today. They've already started, so it will start at 11 o'clock. It will be the city council passed that ordinance that resolution that it be named Richard Gordon Hatcher's Boulevard, and I know Grant goes a long way. It goes into Maryville, and Maryville didn't have to change theirs, but it was done by the city of Gary because he was the first African-American mayor at 34 years old. That's pretty young achievement.
Right.
Yeah, and his daughter, all the great things he's done. There was a statue put up a few years ago, and that statue is going to probably be replaced and put on Broadway besides Everett Gary because it's put on the side door and will be put on the front, like most when you pass City Hall. Excuse me, I have a little cold here. I guess you can hear my voice. Yeah. And so I'm just so proud. I am a member of the Richard Gordon Hatcher Museum and Hall of Fame Committee, which he established and never got a chance to really get it built, but it will be, I'm sure, in the future taken care of because he's done so much for Gary, Indiana. And people might say, well, look at Gary, Indiana now. Well, he did a lot of things. The Adam Benjamin Transportation Center under Richard Hatcher, the Hudson Camel Fitness Center, the Genesis Convention Center, the Housing Authority, the Senior Citizen High Rise. He's just done so many things, and we certainly want to remember him, and I thought it was proper and fitting they have it on the same day of Columbus Day. But it's not a national thing. It's done in Gary. This is Richard Gordon Hatcher's Day in Gary also, and we're going to do this in honor of him, having his family there on Richard Gordon Hatcher's family there, Reagan, and there's three lawyers in the family, Reagan, Renee, and Rachel. They are all lawyers.
That's quite a legacy, right?
Absolutely.
Well, so here I want to ask you. So obviously this is, his election as mayor is part of a story. It's part of a bigger story about sort of the civil rights movement in this country.
Absolutely.
So here's another thing that I worry about. So like for instance, I met the Reverend Jesse Jackson a year or two ago. He's not doing so well. It was amazing. One of the things, and again, regardless of your opinion on things, to meet that man, and the only thing I kept thinking about when I looked him in the eye, I said, the things that those eyes have seen. Do you know what I mean? He was there with Dr. King. He was there, and those people are passing on, right? He was young at the time.
Absolutely.
They're getting older, and so I wonder about what's going to happen in the next couple of generations, how those stories are going to be told when so many of these people aren't around anymore to tell it.
Yeah, well, I think it's incumbent on us who are still here and some of the young people sometimes young people don't know the whole history of not only of what happened in Gary, Indiana, but what happened in America. You have Dr. Martin Luther King, for an example, which talked about nonviolence, and he was talking about all people living together and don't look at one on pigmentation of skin. I don't hear that today. It should be also said today. And so there was a name after one street named after him, and then Malcolm X was the next. So there's been three people, and recognizing all the history and contributions that black people have made in America again. And I know that some people say, well, what is happening in the black community with violence in Chicago? Well, this is not us, okay? This is not us. This is a small few. The vast majority of black people in America they are law-abiding by citizens.
Okay, so here, let me ask this. I apologize for interrupting, but we got to get through this. Okay.
Go ahead.
So one of the things I've been talking about is it feels to me, and I talked about this a little bit with Levita last week, the idea that, let's be honest, we have two very wealthy white men, right? Donald Trump and J.B. Pritzker. Their children are protected, right? They can afford security. The Trump children are protected. These are two guys that can afford to keep their children safe, and they are making decisions about everyone else's children, right? And so here's the thing. Regardless of what you want to say about Chicago, as somebody, I spent a lot of time working with different churches and streaming and working on their technology, just like I hear at WJOB, and I meet people who have lost a child to violence. I was at a church recently, and they had a drive-by shooting as Bible study was getting out on a Friday night. So again, this idea that we sort of just ignore what's happening in the communities because it doesn't fit a narrative. I mean, that's what bothers me is I'm meeting the people who are affected by this violence, and it seems like these two, frankly, wealthy white guys are playing politics with their children.
Well, see, what you need to understand that right now, I think the guy from Utah said it. Sometimes we need to tone it down. Our leaders need to tone it down because right now I'm hearing there's ending a war, but we're talking about a war in this country because of the infighting and stuff that's going on. And I don't think that, and I don't believe that, but there's a possibility because right now people are protesting all across the United States, because all things are being taken away from them. So like I say, it creates, and I say that should not be, I'm about a nonviolent person like Martin Luther King said, but sometimes when you take away all the things that probably poor people, they're not billionaires. They are people basically living from paycheck, not even that, making it. So they come to doing some stupid stuff, crazy stuff, and it shouldn't be done that way. I just happen to believe that America didn't just become great this year. It's been always great. America's always been great. It's been some terrible people who head our governments not doing the right thing other than making money for themselves and being selfish. I applaud this president for doing what he's doing and with the situation with the war. I applaud him. But for him to say that, well, Biden didn't do it, Obama didn't do it, that's very offensive to me because basically you're talking about, again, what you talked about earlier, party lines, So I'm just simply saying I thought it was very good. I was pleased and say that good for Donald Trump. But it didn't ever happen under there. But he didn't mention the war of all the person who, white people who was in office and where war was going, but he mentioned out the same guy that he said wasn't American became to be president of the United States, the birther thing. So I'm just simply saying that in itself, Chuck, is just causing a problem, and I don't think it will end here. And I just don't want to see this come into America where we be so divided. And I think you will have to agree there's a lot of division in America now. Would you agree with that?
Right, and that was something that Jed brought up earlier was the idea of, everyone is glued to their TV sets, being divided and being worked up, and that's the question is, he worries about, we wonder about, is it going to spill over? And I see it spilling over into the streets. Is it going to take some big event that's going to bring us back together, like a 9/11 event? what is going to happen? But at the end of the day, like you said, I mean, what are we trying to do at the end of the day? We're trying to feed our families, keep them safe.
See, now we have a government that's being shut down right now, and basically it's the right versus the left. The left is the right is saying you need to come over here and vote with us. Well, if you vote with us, my doctor's saying that hey, your health care is more important. The Medicare and Medicaid, the poor people. But it seems to me now you're blaming Chuck Schumer for everything, but yet still you're not blaming those other people for saying that, hey, look, we just simply want something for poor people. And that's what we need to be understanding, that right now, and of course, the president, what did he say? I call it triple B, big back, beautiful bill. Well, it's not a beautiful bill. If you some of your relatives having to depend on Medicare and Medicaid, Chuck, it's not good.
Well,
so I'm just simply saying that is causing things in America. That is causing sometimes people to take to the street. Say, we're not going to take it. And I don't agree with that. I think there's a way up there, let the courts, but sometimes the courts are not doing in our favor because we have one person who basically is above the law, making those decisions.
Okay, but here's the thing, though. Look at it from that perspective of Congress likes to pass these big, beautiful bills, thousands of pages, and Congress. There are people like Thomas Massey who tell you, how do I read a 2,000-page bill when I have 15 minutes? It comes off the printer as we're voting. So again, that's where this needs to start. This needs to start with this idea of instead of doing these massive bills that nobody reads, was it Pelosi that said we have to pass it to see what's in it? Right? I mean, again, that's what we need to get away from.
You cannot do it, Chuck. You don't have enough time to do that. You don't have enough time to. And let me just say this, and I appreciate you giving me a minute or two. Let me just say this in concluding. I just got back to this country. I went to Jamaica for a resort. It was one of the finest resorts probably throughout the world, if you will. But I was afraid to would not make it back to this country. Why is that? Because of the shutdown of the air, they don't have enough people working, the flight attendants and the pilots and stuff like that. And they say it might be dangerous for us to get back into the country, so we just might shut everything down. And I say, well, why don't they just like saying that? And I don't know if you remember, you're probably too young to know that. What's the name? Ronald Reagan. He fired all the air traffic controllers.
Right.
Okay, you remember that. I thought you probably wouldn't remember that. If not, you probably read it in the book.
I know my history. I read my history.
Yeah. So I was afraid. I was afraid of something like this may have happened, and Donald Trump would probably say, "We're just going to fire all these people." And I said, "Oh my God!" So I'm back to the greatest nation in the world, America. That's what. And again, but we need to have them to tone this down because the fighting the left and right is not benefiting people like me and people. If you don't have $1 million in the bank, you better be careful.
There you go, Ron. It's a perfect place to leave it. God bless America. Appreciate your phone call.
Yes.
So he was just talking about Mayor Hatcher Day. They're going to have an event at 11 o'clock. It was at 25th and Grant. To honor him and his legacy in Gary. So, okay, we got to go. It's 9 o'clock. Appreciate you guys, as always, for tuning in. What a wild day, as always. Bob will be back next week to help rein things in. Hopefully we'll have a more quiet show, as the boss likes to have. But, Lena, thank you so much for holding the fort down for us. We'll be back next week with more. It'll be finally, maybe we'll update the graphic. It'll be fall of Chuck.